For the record, my name is Brian Worrell, District 4 City Councilor, and I'm Chair of the Boston City Council Committee on Ways and Means. Today is May 13th, 2024. Happy Police Week. This hearing is being recorded. It is also being live streamed at boston.gov/city-council-tv and broadcast on Xfinity Channel 8, RCN Channel 82, and Fios Channel 964. The Council's budget review process will encompass a series of public hearings that began in April and will run through June. We strongly encourage residents to take a moment to engage in this process by giving testimony for the record. You can do this in several ways. Attend one of our hearings and give public testimony. We will take public testimony at the end of each departmental hearing and also at 2 hearings dedicated to public testimony. The full hearing schedule is on our website at boston.gov/council-budget. Our next scheduled hearing dedicated to public testimony is Tuesday, May 28th at 6 p.m. You can give testimony in person, here in the chamber, or virtually via Zoom. For in-person testimony, please come to the chamber and sign up on the sheet near the entrance. For virtual testimony, you can sign up using our online form on our council budget review website or by emailing the committee at ccc.wm@boston.gov. When you are called to testify, please state your name and affiliation or residence and limit your comments to a few minutes to ensure that all comments and concerns can be heard. Number 2 is email your written testimony to the committee at ccc.wm@boston.gov, or 3, submit a 2-minute video of your testimony through the form on our website. For more information on the council budget process and how to testify, please visit the City Council's budget website at boston.gov/council-budget. Today's hearing is on dockets number 0670 through 0672. Orders for the FY25 operating budget, including annual appropriations for departmental operations for the school department and other post-employment benefits. Docket number 0673 through 0675. Orders for capital fund transfer appropriations. Docket number 0676 through 0678. Orders for the capital budget, including loan orders and lease purchase agreements. These matters were sponsored by Mayor Michelle Wu and referred to the committee on April 10, 2024. The focus on this hearing will be discuss the FY25 budget for the Boston Police Department, including, just give me 1 second, guys. Overtime, detail system, officer mental health, and central booking. Today, I'm joined by my council colleagues in order of arrival: Councilor Fernandez-Anderson, Council President Louis Jen, Councilor Murphy, Councilor Santana, Councilor Coletta, Councilor Fitzgerald, Councilor Flynn, Councilor Pepin, Councilor Mejia, and Councilor Weber. I'd like to now introduce today's panelists testifying on behalf of the administration: Commissioner Cox, Superintendent Chief Long, Chief of Staff Taub, Bureau Chief of Administration and Technology O'Brien, Deputy Superintendent Humphreys, and Superintendent Cologne. The floor is now yours.
Oh, good afternoon. And so, for the sake of time, I appreciate, being here. We've already gone over quite a few things, but we welcome your questions going forward.
Thank you. Councilor Fernandez-Anderson, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I noticed on your presentation in terms of community feedback, and there were specific percentages, helped in terms of post-community ComStat surveys indicate that attendees thought of the meetings, and helped them gain understanding crime in their district, 98%. Made them feel more confident in police, 91%, made them feel safer in their neighborhood, 74%, made them feel more comfortable in interacting with police, 87%, helped them gain a better understanding of how the police work to keep their neighborhood safe, 94%. So I'm really interested in this because I think this is phenomenal that we are trying to build relationships by way of building trust with community and creating transparency in our work. And I wanted to understand who did you survey and the numbers, or how does that go about? Like, is it per meeting, or are you sending out surveys to communities by district, or how does this work?
And so in the districts where we've done the community meetings, there was a survey sent out pre-meeting, usually developed through the community service officers of the general population of people who come to their meetings in general. Just a pre-survey about what their thoughts around public safety, what we're doing, what they expect, things of that nature. Then they come to the meeting, and then we do, immediately after the meeting, we do another survey judging, at least ranking their opinion about a bunch of different topics after the meeting. And so that's what that's from. We've done them in so far B3, C11, E13, A7, D4, and eventually D14, which will hopefully be tomorrow.
So did you mention B2 in there?
No, we have not done B2 yet.
Thank you. And I guess let's segue a little bit into something else. This is more about exchange with police contracts or trainings. A lot of community advocates have concerns about BPD exchange program and training with Israel's military work. Will the administration be banning this exchange? Has it been banned? I didn't find any recent numbers. I don't even think it exists anymore, but it is a concern, and folks wanted to, on record, a response on where we are as a city with that.
So we currently certainly do not train, have not trained with any certainly military groups in Israel. But that being said, I do want to make a comment that we never want to limit the people that we actually have educational things with in general. Not about that topic, but about any topic in general, because the fact is that law enforcement is not becoming international, but the things that you can learn, whether it's the mistakes that people make or the positive things that happen from other places. And so sometimes just having access to what people went through is really important to make sure that we're using the best techniques possible.
How do you mean what they went through?
Learning from the mistakes, right? So you can either make the mistakes yourself, or you can learn through other people's mistakes.
Thank you. I didn't find anything on record or anything like that presently. But that's good to know. Thank you. And in terms of central lockup, I filed a hearing order to have a conversation specifically in the Sheriff's Department in that area of Mass and Cass. It abuts my district, but also part of it is D7. And there are just some of a longer list of questions in terms of, mayor and BPD that I think I would like answers to. And I guess, what is the legal authorization for the regional lockup and central booking?
So what we were trying to do is, the fact is the sheriff offices, that's what they do. They hold people. They have medical professionals that work there, 24/7. They're in the business of actually holding, prisoners. We actually do it as a part of our job, but that is not a core of what we do in that way. And so the idea was to partner with someone who does it for a living, and they do it in other places, by the way, for the purposes of taking us out of the prisoner business, to make sure that as we run across people that might be suffering from issues or certainly might have medical needs and things of that nature, that they can actually be in a place where they can address those a lot quicker and in a better capacity, as well as get us out of the prisoner business, because the fact is that the only reason why we have it is to get them to court, and the fact is that the way that they're designed, it's better for, I would say, the criminal justice system if they were to do that in some way, shape, or form. And so that's what we're trying to do.
Thank you so much. I will leave the rest of those questions for that hearing with the right department. As far as, it looks like in 2023, BPD recovered 261 firearms through safeguarding. And I'm curious to know the breakdown of that data a bit more. How many firearms were recovered due to an individual license being suspended, and did BPD suspend any licenses without successfully recovering the firearm?
So I'll have to get back to you at a later time on that break for around the licensing portion of it.
Thank you. And then, looking at the BEST dashboard, it seems like we have seen a downward trend in number of incidents with which BEST clinicians respond to, with BPD officers around September of 2022, December of 22, and to December of 2023. Is there a reason for that downward trend? Are we doing better with, in terms of like crisis responses? Or just less incidents? What do you know with that?
Yeah, I'm unsure of what you're referencing, so I don't want to speak to it and be incorrect, but is it from our own dashboard?
Yeah.
Pulling it up right now, so to speak, I apologize.
No worries. So we'll come back to that.
Okay.
In the RFI, we instructed or asked that you provide org chart with salaries, but we have the names but not the salaries. Are you able to provide them through the chair electronically later on?
Yeah, yes, we can do that.
Thank you so much. And then on page 19 of the RFI, you mentioned that a subset of departments worked with performance management team in new measures. Can you list these new measures?
Please.
Could I have a where in the RFI here?
Page 19. So for this, the question for you, or the ask was, for this upcoming fiscal year, please provide a narrative explaining any proposed new measurements or changes to the target levels of new existing performance measurements. And then the department responded, all departments receive enterprise measures in FY25 to support citywide goals of promoting diversity in hiring and improving the speed at which positions are filled. A subset of departments also worked with performance management to team on new measures that relate to specific department functions with city initiatives. And I'm interested in new measures because as we're talking about, reform, I'm also interested in understanding like the pain points of where you feel that reform could improve the department. But specifically, I guess the measures would speak to those pain points as well.
When you say reform, are you making reference to the diversity department, hiring, or just policing in general? Just
I guess I would like to understand, to your definition, like what that means, because I read it in your report a lot, and I guess what reform could mean for community advocates or for counselors could be different for the department.
And so I think part of it, I think, is that we should be really good at what we're supposed to be good at, and so we're making sure that our officers understand our mission, making sure that that we're, if not the best, that we could be at that, close to the best, and making sure that we're always training and bringing in new information and insights so that we're always at the forefront of the best standards and best practices around that, particularly around building public trust, keeping people safe, and partnering with keeping people safe. And then so the other aspect of reform is which we're going to work on, which is around accreditation, which is not now, but that's something we're working towards, and maybe I can talk about a little bit later on. That's another half of it. But it's really important that we understand our mission, that we all work towards that people know what they expect around that, and that we're building trust along the way. And so, that is what we're trying to do.
Thank you. Just wrapping up for context. You have 6 goals, and of those goals, then you work on certain, your mission for the department. Your specific description here speaks of, how to or where the areas or domains that you have to improve to do your job better. And then specifically to your office, what that mission is, Bureau of Community Engagement, what they do and what that mission is. the BAT Operations, Bureau of Administration and Technology Operations Program, BAT Administration and Technology, Bureau of Professional Development, Bureau of Field Services, Bureau of Professional Standards. And I guess based on all of these different descriptions in order to get to your mission, I'm trying to figure out the measures that you've implemented thus far to be able to get folks to the professional standard or development that you expect in order to reach your goals. That's my time. The chair is going to cut me off, but I'll come back to those questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Murphy, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Coletta, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. I have questions as it relates to, let's see, the detail system and overtime. So the last time I asked about this was, I think, during the contract hearings where I talked about the fact that I was pleased to see an overhaul of the detail system and frustrated when it came to utility work on highly utilized streets that do not have a police detail to keep pedestrians safe, but then seeing police detail for residential streets. I had asked for information during that hearing about tracking 4 and 8 hour minimums and if those hours are being met. My understanding is that if an officer works anything between 1 to 4 hours of detail, they get paid 4 hours. If they work between 4 to 8 hours, they get paid 8 hours. And so I had asked for that information tracking this area of overtime, and we never received it. So I'm curious to know if you have it today for us.
I apologize for that. Do we have that? Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't know that. That was one of the questions. I do know that since the patrolmen have signed the contract around details, that we're filling 78.7% of our prioritized details there.
I would also add that the part of the reform contained in the contracts was to try to limit that kind of roll up, and so scheduling details in 4 or 8 hour blocks as much as possible so that you're eliminating time paid but not worked, while also still prohibiting any overlap of detail hours with your regular shift hours. So really trying to focus on hours paid equaling hours worked,
Okay.
while also making sure that our priority or tier 1 jobs are getting filled.
Okay, and then so is it correct to say that if an officer is done working a detail and finishes early, they're not allowed to pick up another detail within the same time frame? Is that correct?
That's correct. As long you cannot accept 2 jobs with overlapping scheduled hours.
Okay. That's the question I have for this round, Chair. I'll yield my time for the next round. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Coletta. Councilor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Vice Chair Peppin. Thank you, panel, for being here again with us today. In relation to details, just some basic stuff, and really for my own education, for anyone watching at home. I think there's a common misconception, right, that details are paid for by the city when typically it's utility companies or private companies that need it. But how does that reimbursement work? Does it come, the city pays and we are reimbursed then through the utility, or they paid directly by utility companies, et cetera? And I have some follow-ups to that.
Yeah, so it's just as you said, but go ahead.
So the city will pay the officer, so when we enter the details of the overtime, one load will go directly to the human capital management system to pay the officer, and then the other portion of it goes to base financials where they generate an invoice to that vendor. And obviously the invoice is, we bill the vendor directly.
So in that, how often are payments made back? And is it, what's typically the time where we put the invoice out to when it is paid? Or is there, do they just do it all and say, hey, let us know at the end of the year and we'll just pay it off at once? Or does it come in?
Oh, it comes in frequently.
Okay.
But some of the bigger companies like Verizon and some of the utility companies, their They're based on projects, so basically, some projects come in quicker than other projects. It's just like, because they do review all the invoices that come in and make sure that it's assigned to whatever project or work that they were working on, but they always pay.
And that was my next question. There's never been a history of, right, there's no waiver of any of these details or anything like that, right? They've always paid. Is there any other history of lateness?
We're really on top of our bills for the details. But I know that when the city performed an audit, I want to say back in like 2013 with Ernst & Young, when they were bringing the receivables on the books, they did write a portion of details off that were uncollectible, or like for a vendor might go out of business.
Yeah.
And like, I think our detail office does a pretty good job trying to collect.
Great.
And I think the city has used our department as an example to other departments for collections.
Awesome. Moving on, it's sort of the same basic questions around central booking. It's in Nashua Street, right? Is that the only location that we have?
So no, we still book, prisoners in a few of our stations. It was really more about mass and cast when we first started, to have a centralized location, because we were using offices from multiple different youth districts to go there, particularly given this, we were concerned about the state of some of the, people that we might bring on, particularly around the health part. We thought the sheriff's department was far better suited to make sure we meet the needs of some of those people.
So do we only have one central booking in the city?
Central
book. I know we can book in the districts as well, but
this is a goal we're working towards. We currently can't say that we have a total central booking. This is more like a pilot that we're starting. So, and you want to speak to that?
Yes, sir. So we're currently booking prisoners that were arrested in the Mass and Cass kind of catchment area. Yep. And like the commissioner had said, it was, looking at the condition, some of the people are in, substance abuse crisis mode, mental health, all this other stuff. We felt as though it was a better environment for them. There's nurses that are on staff. There's medical evaluations, and then the facility itself, once the prisoner is transitioned to the sheriff's department, like the commissioners mentioned earlier, they're in the business. That's their role. It's a better environment from the housing standpoint. So currently, it's prisoners that it's crosses district borders, but in that Mass and Cass catchment area, that's where those prisoners are currently diverted.
So in the future, is that what it will, say we reach our goal and the Mass and Cass issue is not the issue that it is currently today? Central booking could be used for, even on, what are the instances outside of that? Could it be used for anybody, any instance of booking any district can go?
Yeah, except for juveniles. Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Juveniles are a separate entity all to themselves, but yes.
And would more central booking type things help officers stay on the street if you were looking to make more central booking locations, right? I know this is a pilot, we're starting one, but even if we do expand that?
Not only officers, but actually in the cells and watching prisoners, things of that nature, it's just not a cost savings. It is a cost savings, but more importantly, it puts officers back out onto the streets, and so we don't have to, worry about watching the prisoners, things of that nature.
Right, thank you. And finally, on mental health, I know I took a ride along with C11 several months ago, and Officer Bradham, who drove me around for the night, we talked a lot about what it is to be a police officer and sort of the things you go through. And he explained his own process for try to, digest some of the things that you see and go through and feelings you have being a police officer. What else, could you just take this opportunity to describe what is out there that we are providing for our officers for mental health now?
So clearly we have, part of the wellness program is we give them the opportunity to actually, seek help and provide help, but we're also working with ROCA with a program just designed for that, to help officers, deal with some of their emotions and around certainly some of the things around the brain and things of that nature. And so that's an in-service that we're doing with our current officers, and I believe all new officers are trained in it as well. And
No, I think, in the first round, we talked about it, in terms of our peer support unit, it's a very robust program, and, there's a lot of different programs that go through, that are available through the peer support unit. And I think, like I said earlier, we do a good job. We've sent the message down throughout the department, like if you see other officers that you think are having an issue, people will call the peer support unit anonymously and say, hey, listen, we think, so-and-so has an issue, and they kind of get to them that way. But, like I said earlier, I think, there was always a stigma attached to that, but, from what I've seen, from when I first came on to now, officers being willing and able to utilize the, the programs that we have, like I said, I think we're in a pretty good spot. Again, we're always looking to build upon that, but there is a lot of stuff out there for officers that, they know about it. Some of them will do it on their own. Some of it takes a little bit of prodding and pushing, and again, I mentioned earlier, the unions are, a very good partner in this. We have discussions with them a lot, stuff comes up about certain officers and directing them towards the programs that we have.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councilor Flynn, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Commissioner, and the police officials that are here from the Boston Police Department. Thank you for testifying. We also had a hearing a month ago, a couple months ago, and a civilian testified, Maria Chivas, who did an outstanding job as well, testifying, but she's been a tremendous asset for the police department, being very responsive to a lot of our questions. So I just want to acknowledge her professionalism. So, Commissioner, can you talk to me again about, and I know it has mostly to do with the mass and cast situation, but central booking, what is the process now for booking if it happens on the weekends? Is there any change in logistics, or are we continuing to do what we've always been doing?
You talking about mass cast, the whole city?
Mass and cast.
Okay. So we'll have Dan, you want to speak to mass and cast?
Sure, absolutely. You're talking about the deployments down there or the booking?
The booking, central booking, and again, knowing that many of them are dealing with medical challenges, how are you ensuring that they're safe, but also that there's personnel to help them with this?
Yep, so on the ground, if the determination that a person is incapacitated due to substance abuse, they go to the hospital, they get medical treatment. So we do not bring an incapacitated person to any of our lockups or anything like that. If a person is medically, commits a crime or an offense that would subject them to arrest and they're physically able to be placed into our custody, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, we are currently staffing the Nashua Street booking. So they will go there. Doesn't matter what day of the week it is.
Okay. With Boston police personnel there?
Yes, sir. They'll be transported by Boston police officers, and they're booked by Boston police officers.
Okay. Deputy, are there any changes to that procedure if the prisoner is a woman?
So the female prisoner would be booked at the district of arrest. Upon verification, they would go to C6.
In South Boston?
For housing. They could also be brought directly there.
Okay. And what happens when they're in the custody of C6, especially on the weekend?
Sure. The bail magistrate would be contacted, and a bail hearing would take place. And if eligible for bail and release, they would be released. If not, they would remain at C6 and delivered to court on Monday morning.
Okay. So they could be at the police station at C6 for 48 hours, a Friday afternoon till Monday morning, or even longer, I guess.
Yes, sir.
Does C6, I know they do a tremendous job, but do they have the ability, do they have the expertise to care for a prisoner that may or may not have medical related issues?
I mean, certainly if someone's, has a medical issue, we certainly call EMS and/or make sure that they get the hospital care that they need. We are not physicians, no nurses in that capacity, but that's why we have partners to absolutely do it. That's the reason why, we thought it was so important to try to partner with the Sheriff's Department, because they actually have staff on hand that actually are medical professionals.
If a prisoner is brought to a hospital, does the Boston police officer stay with that prisoner the entire time?
For the most part, depending on the offense, but for the most part, yes.
Does it matter what the arrest is for?
Yes.
What arrest would not ensure the custody of the police being physically there?
Probably something that we felt that we could summons them as opposed to, just waiting for it. Probably something more domestic violence related or violent crime related. We would stay with the personnel, but there are a whole host of things. I mean, each circumstance might be different. What's going on, the circumstances around the event in general.
Thank you. I know a couple of my colleagues asked about domestic violence related challenges. Do we have personnel on Boston Police in the domestic violence unit that speak languages other than English, such as Cantonese?
Hold
What was the language, Cantonese?
Cantonese.
I don't believe we have a detective or a supervisor that speaks Cantonese, but we do throughout the department, and then they would call for assistance and have the officer contact or else.
Do we
Yes.
always have someone working in Boston Police all the time that speaks Cantonese?
I don't know, but we certainly have access to a language line in the city program more recently around our ability to use language materials.
So we participated in the Tier 1 part of the Language and Communications Access Program, and have just recently, as part of that, distributed iPads preloaded with interpreter programs to all of the districts, as well as the Public Service Counter at headquarters and the Family Justice Division School Engagement Unit, the Citywide Community Engagement Unit, and Internal Affairs, and have loaded the apps on the cell phone so that if there's not a person with a specific linguistic ability available to respond, they can utilize those programs through the technology provided.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Superintendent.
I stand corrected. Detective Richie Moy, forgive me, he's in the domestic violence unit.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Superintendent. That's helpful. Commissioner, can you talk about, in getting back to the low number of police we had, I think you mentioned earlier it's the lowest number you've seen in a long period of time. But because we have a low number of police officers, is that impacting promotion to sergeant? Is it impacting sergeant to lieutenant? I guess my question is, are we concerned about taking rank and file patrolmen off the street, putting them in another unit that may not be as on the street as a patrolman? Is that a concern of yours, Commissioner?
Yeah, certainly it's a factor of timing, because in order to promote, you're taking from, the officer pool for anything, whether it's detectives or supervisors across the board. And so, we're trying to be intentional about the timing of certain things, again, to try to time it more around academy classes, things of that nature.
So the crime stats are down, but we just don't have enough police officers to fill our shifts.
I'd like to say that we are working as efficiently as possible with the staff that we have. Promotions are important, and something we were always looking towards to make sure we have an appropriate supervision, because it certainly plays a role in what we do around that. But we just can't naturally, we have a certain number, and then we had a certain number of supervisors, and it used to be opening, fill it, opening, fill it. Right now, we don't have the same number of people, so we just can't go down that pattern of just opening and fill something as though we did have that number. And so we're just trying to be mindful of the number we have, the needs we have, and making sure we recognize that we're not fully staffed before we do promotions in general.
Okay. I still have more time, Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I referenced earlier, Commissioner, my neighborhood in South Boston, Andrews Square, having a lot of challenges. And I've worked with the Boston Police on this issue, and again, they're doing a very good job. But what are we doing as it relates to Mass and Cass with the people leaving Mass and Cass or arriving at Mass and Cass? They're coming into Andrews Square off the red line. Can we beef up support in Andrews Square? Councilor Fitzgerald mentioned South Bay Mall, which is across the street, into Dorchester. Do we have a specific plan to deal with public safety challenges outside the immediate area of Mass and Cass?
I mean, we currently spend a great deal of resources in that area in general, and we will continue to do what's needed. But, I always have to separate the issue between, optics of crime and in crime. And so, we will do all we can to address crime. Some of the optics that people don't like around, maybe some of the personnel that might be in the area, we can't always do something about that because it's not a crime. And so I just want to make sure that we separate the two issues. But yes, we do have strategies in place to deal with that, but it always begins with also complaints too around some of this stuff too. So as we find out about it, we will address it real time as fast as possible.
Thank you, Commissioner.
You're welcome.
I think my time's up. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Peppin, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. And good afternoon, everyone. It's good to see you all again. My question is regarding mental health. Recently, I took a visit to the Suffolk County Correctional Facility. I was able to get a tour and was able to learn about what they're doing. But the topic of mental health came up, and I became curious of what BPD is doing. Are you all shifting the model when you're training and hiring folks to, I know it shouldn't be your responsibility, but to think about mental health perspective as well, of having to deal with a mental health case on the workforce, making that a staple in your training process? Because I know community policing is like the main focus, but maybe you do a certain trainings to how to, again, this shouldn't be your responsibility, but I think it would be important and helpful for the workforce moving forward.
So I know the Academy certainly adds some features around this, particularly as I described to you about ROKR training. We have CIT training for officers that, that work in, that area, Mass and Cass in general, around that. And then, we do as much as we can to make sure officers are exposed to, anything mentally health related, because the fact is we have to respond to so many of those calls around that. And so, it's an issue of we only have so many hours of training, and then making sure that we get the biggest bang for the buck, and then follow up on that every year or two, and that's what we're trying to do related to this stuff. The reality is that we're called to quite a few calls in general where people are struggling with mental health, and it doesn't seem to be going away, even when we partner with people. And that's just the reality of our job. So we do need to do more, and we're trying to do more to make sure our officers are equipped to deal with it.
And thank you for that, Commissioner. And I know I started by saying the new workforce, but is there also programs in place to train maybe an officer that has been on the job for a longer time period, that maybe has just came into the workforce with a different type of experience and now kind of having to rethink of how they're doing the job?
And so, that's an excellent question. As I said, that we're doing this ROKR training, which is Rewire, which is about rewiring the brain to deal with some of that stuff. I do know we just started a new initiative. Is the work still? And Superintendent Bastion's here, and we have a new program which we're just starting, and she just spoke to it today. She can explain.
So right now, we do have 12 hours of mental health training. We also have crisis intervention training, which is 8 more additional hours. That's just for the recruits. But the big thing that we do in the academy is that we include mental health training in when we do scenario-based training. So we have over 1,100 hours of training, and when we do our scenario-based training, we incorporate mental health just like we incorporate community police and mindset in everything aspect of the training. So we have those extra 11 hours and 12 hours, but on top of it, we incorporate that. As far as in-service, we started the multiple trainings, but one of them is exactly what you're talking about, Rewire, which is all the officers on the job with 30 years on, the chief, command staff down that has to go through that training, and that's about mental health awareness. As far as in health and wellness, we also have 32 hours of first responders, officer mental health and wellness, 132 hours combined. So that's a lot concentrated on. But the main focus I want to talk about is, and just reiterate, is that it's incorporated into our scenario-based training. So even though we have that when we do breakout sessions, which is a lot of hours, we bring that mental health aspect in. So that is a big focus at the academy and a big focus for the commissioner to have all of our officers, like you said. His question all the time to me is like the recruits are getting it, do our veteran officers have it? So we are incorporating that into our in-service.
Wow. Thank you, Norm. And by in-service, those are current officers that are already out there.
Everyone with a uniform, including the command staff. So it's a lot of focus.
Thank you, Superintendent
All right.
Bath. It's good to see you. And then my next question is a bit connected to that, and it's, has BPD considered having a trained professional in each district, like a social worker or someone that deals with mental health, that is not a uniformed police officer, in each, like again, in each district, if that doesn't exist already?
Yeah, and so we have that sort of with our partnership with Youth Connect, where there's a trained social worker that certainly deals with youth around referrals in a lot of our stations. Not all of them, but it's quite a few of our stations in general around that. And as well as, remember now we have best team clinicians that actually work with us in general as well. So we do partner with some folks around in that space and have some people that are dedicated to that in multiple parts of the city.
That's good to know. I appreciate you sharing that. Okay, my last question for this round is, I know that E18 has a very fine program of mentoring young men in Hyde Park specifically. I know that there's been several cases where a parent has called where they're looking for someone to be of guidance to the youth. But I was wondering, is there a more general program across BPD that provides this service? Digging more specifically for young men of color, because that's what I'm getting from residents, that they want to see that in place, because they know the parents that have used that resource at E18 know that it works. I just want to know that if it's available citywide.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I met a young lady just yesterday, and she was talking about the impact that we had on her son, where this mentoring program that you just made reference to in some of the officers, and she was tremendously grateful to that. I know we have started a recent partnership coming up around more around labor and mentoring people and bringing them in to introduce them to our department in some capacity, as far as maybe future work and things of that nature. We have a lot of officers that do so many different things actually on their own, whether it's mentoring and all these other programs individually, on their own time and in their own way, around that space of mentoring in general. We have a teen academy that we use particularly during the summer months, where we bring in young kids and hopefully try to mentor them as well and see if they have any interest in, not only, maybe public safety, but any public safety, job that's within the city. We work with kids in multiple capacities, and we consider that when we're doing that, mentoring. Whether we're there reading the kids, playing, dodgeball, or doing all the different things that we do around community police and building trust, it's meant to provide some type of mentorship with the kids and youth of our city. So it's not a formalized plan, but the fact is we do it in so many different ways, and maybe, we always looking to do more, If you're interested or have some more ideas around that, we can talk offline about that.
Definitely. But with that, again, I just want to thank you all for the work you do. Thank you for answering my questions. I look forward to seeing you all in the community. And with that, I'll yield the rest of my time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Just a few questions around the Best Team and Youth Connect. How many is it Youth Connect liaisons and then Best Team clinicians do we have?
Districts, yeah. It's funny, last year, I think I spoke to it last year in the meeting. Of course, I can't remember it offhand.
And then do we have any data around of their deployment, like how often they're going off to calls?
Yeah. Hold on a second. It's quite a few, but hold on. Okay. And so make reference to last year's numbers, and I will get you this year's numbers, so just not right this second. As far as referrals, this year? In 2023, we had 326 referrals, and they're by state, different stations. And I could do a breakdown of what those are, but virtually every station in the city had a referral. Even if we don't have one assigned to that station, we get some from social workers from other stations to go to a different district.
All right, and are they, my understanding last year, they weren't around the clock. Are they?
24/7,
24/7,
it's
right.
still not 24/7, but again, a referral, even if it's not during the shift, that we can, try to catch up at another time or whatever. We'll still make the referrals.
Right.
It's just that they won't be able to get to them real time at that moment.
All right, yeah. I would just like updated stats or data. Councilman Mejia, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Okay. So I'm going to go back to a question that I had earlier since you guys are still here. And it goes back to promotional. I am a firm believer that it is very difficult for folks who sometimes don't understand the culture or don't understand the community, for them to really see us in ways that we feel like we're being protected and served too, right? So this is why I keep going back to the diversity situation. So in the past 12 to 15 years, the last 3 sergeant exams, 2008, 2014, and 2020, have produced the following sergeant list below, and I'm going to break it down by race. For Black male, 35, Black female, 12, Hispanic male, 16, Hispanic female, 4, Asian male, 5, Asian female, 1, white male, 288, and white female, 39. And so this is why I keep harping on the importance of us really doing everything in our power to diversify leadership, because those who are in positions of power are able to move in ways that reflect the diversity that exists within the community that they happen to be overseeing. And so I just want to name that this, over the last 12 to 15 years, we have not met the moment when it comes to our diversity efforts. And so we have an opportunity this time, Commissioner, to repair that harm and really think about what changes we can make to increase our diversity numbers. So I just wanted to name that for the record. Now I'm going on to my questions. I'm going to start off with some of the advocates have been talking about the folks from Massachusetts, the Bail Fund, Families for Justice as Healing, the Material Aid and Advocacy Program are all pushing back on the central booking because they believe it expands police powers and puts people in the sheriff's hand at Nashua Street. Advocates are saying that police are using it against the unhoused people and also use it when they arrested the Northeastern protesters. And I'm just curious, the groups are saying that we need to invest in more housing and voluntary treatment, not forced treatment, so so that they can have real support and real solutions. And so how are you all grappling with the central lockup conversation that's happening? And, how are you reconciling with what the advocates are saying and some of the concerns that have bubbled up to the top? And what is your administration thinking?
And so, remember, the premise of doing this in the beginning was actually providing better service to people who are, prisoners to us for an evening or whatever. We're not in the holding business, we're public safety. And so the idea was that the sheriff's office, with all the facilities they have and/or the actual right personnel to make sure people are safe and can address the emergency needs that may or may not come. The thought was that, they were better suited to that, and then we could offload, some of the folks that come into our possession in some way, shape, or form to better serve them in that way. Because, I have to say, in the criminal justice system, we're not there to punish them. We're just there to get them to the next portion of the criminal justice system, which is really court. And so, even in our facilities, that's what it's for. But the fact is that our officers are better suited, serving the public and not, watching, holding prisoners. If something happens, they're not equipped to address those needs. Our facilities are not as equipped, or I would say as good as what the sheriff's office says. So it was actually on the behalf of the people that we were holding. That's what we were trying to do, as well as meeting the other needs and challenges that we have, just through our own staffing.
Okay. I'm going to go to a question that Councilor Worrell lifted up. He talked about that in the past years there was more than $1 million for underspending for lease and purchases. This was earlier. But this year the proposed budget is going up by $2 million. And you also said, I believe, that $1.5 million was spent on equipment in 2023. The proposed equipment budget is $9.1 million, with $7.6 million coming from lease purchases. Can you clarify these numbers? Was there only $1.5 million spent in equipment? And why is the budget going up to $9.1 million when there has been so much underspending? There's some discrepancies with those numbers. If you can provide some clarity, I would appreciate that. The next question that I have is that you described a little about how BPD decides on creating overtime shifts. Do captains and BPD leaders have banks on overtime hours that they use to create those shifts? For example, are captains told you have 5,000 overtime hours you can assign this month, right? Like, just, I don't know, it's just throwing out a number out there. How does this system work, and how many hours do captain and BPD leaders get to assign? I'd like to understand that a little bit more. And then based on the 2023 data from the city's analyzed Boston website, 2,038 officers made overtime that was more than 10% of their regular pay. And 583 officers made overtime that was more than 50% of their regular pay. Is that accurate? And why is officers' overtime pay so high compared to their regular pay? And how can we limit this so that we can fund other budget priorities?
The pay is contractual on the last question. That's overtime is at paid at a different rate than regular time. Banks, there are no overtime banks for the captains to do as they please. That doesn't exist. And I'm sorry, the other question I think was back to you. Lease purchases.
Lease purchases and equipment. So the line item where it's $1.5 million is equipment that we purchased through the operating budget. And then the $7.5 million is through the lease purchase program. So it includes current year purchases plus amortization of prior year purchases because it's debt service.
Okay, so I'd like to know, thank you for that. Could you tell me, I don't have my sheet in front of me, what is the budget line item for Superintendent Batson's department on community engagement? How much are we spending?
She runs the Police Academy.
I keep forgetting that. But you know what? It's so funny because you're still out in the community as though you're still out in these streets. So that's why I'm having a hard time displacing you out of there because you're so incredibly ever present in community. So thank you for always showing up even though you don't have to. That speaks volumes to your leadership. But let's talk about the community engagement department. What's the budget line item?
4.1 million.
How many?
4.1 million.
Okay. And can you just talk to us about how did you end up with that number?
A good chunk of our salaries that's in the community engagement, which would be the officers that are housed under the Bureau of Community Engagement. But also during November, we send out what we call budget templates to all the cost centers. The Bureau of Community Engagement would be one. And we ask them, aside from personnel, we ask them, what is it that you're looking for non-personnel expenses? And they submit that, and we in turn submit that as a whole department.
So let's go back to the police academy, because I think that that's really kind of the pipeline, right? We're recruiting, we're engaging, we're educating. Can you talk to us a little bit about the training and development line item?
You mean the personnel staff that work at the academy? No.
Well, I mean, the academy right now rolls into is the Bureau of Professional Development. So I don't specifically have the academy broken down, but I can get that information to you.
Yeah.
Because there are several departments that roll into, several units that roll into that bureau. One is the firearms out in Moon Island in the academy, but I can break that out for you.
Yeah, because I'm trying to understand. I see a lot of the cadets that are in training in community events with Superintendent Batson that I want to keeping her in the community space, but like they are showing up in spaces, and that's part of the training. And I don't know if that is a practice that has seen its value, that you all are recognizing the value of having officers really be in deep community before they're out in their professional roles. Can you talk to us a little bit about some of the outcomes that you have seen?
Well, I mean, it's highly valuable for officers to understand how to build trust with community when they're in the academy. When they get out, they hit the ground running. It tends to lead to better engagement across the board, we believe. But I want to say this about, engagement. I mean, that's part of all our jobs, in the police department. And that's what we're trying to change the culture to make sure people understand that. So no matter where they sit, they're engaged in the public to build trust in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that my time is up, but I think that I'm going to wait for round two because I really think that when we're talking about building trust, there's an incident that occurred that I would love to learn a little bit more about, and it's the jump out crew. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with that term.
We certainly don't have any units called jump out crew,
but that's how it's been coined in the news.
Again, the news says a lot, but you have to be more specific. Thank you.
Okay, this was about two young, there was two officers who apparently rolled up on a young man late at night, and there was a video that went viral, and luckily this young man knew his constitutional rights and he was able to defend himself. But the officer that was interacting with this young man was not showing up in a professional and a courteous way. And so when we're talking about professional development and we're talking about shifting culture, the best way for us to really restore harm, and I'm going to go back again, is by making sure that we are restoring and investing in shifting leadership so that people on the ground can see themselves reflected. So I think that there's still a lot of work that we need to do as it relates to building trust in the community in some instances. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Hare. Council Weber, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Hello again. So I have some questions about overtime, and as a former wage and hour attorney, I think of overtime as a tool that's designed to make sure that we hire enough workers, and it's not supposed to be a supplement to people's wages that they feel like they have to work to make a living and afford to live here. So when I hear about people working overtime and feeling like they need to earn, 50% of their, annual salary through overtime, it's designed as a penalty to the employer to say, don't have this person work over 40 hours, there could be something, a certain threshold, hire someone else to do the job. So in terms of overtime, can you tell me, so what's the current staffing level for police officers? Was it 3,000? Yeah, just give me the number.
1,401.
Okay. And, so do you have a number? Do you agree that that's not, you're not fully staffed, or is that number, what's your goal?
I mean, the goal is to have enough officers to be able to do all the things that we needed to do to keep people safe. And so certainly over time, we've had more officers. That's certainly for sure around that. And so to get back to our, sworn number that we had at one point would be a really good start. But we've not been at that number now for several years now. And so we're just trying to make sure we meet all the needs of the city.
Well, so, I mean, what's a number in the past that you think?
Yeah, and just quickly, I just got two different numbers. But I remember it at 2287 at one point, and so we can get you historically what that number's been over time. But the fact is, we're not really near that number right now. And so I think your point is about overtime and people not thinking it's a basic need or whatever. And I don't think that that's where we are as a department right now. Officers are doing overtime because we are forcing many of them, because the fact is we're backfilling quite a bit around that. We have more details in the city than we have officers to do it. And that's a means to make extra money, as you made reference to before. So I don't know if there was historically a time when maybe people might wanted to do that, felt the need, but today, officers have the ability to do details and make, just as much money.
Well, and so you threw out is that 2,000? So you think we're about 50% of our
that was the overall sworn.
Okay.
Not a breakdown of just police officers.
Have you done it? So my understanding is that overtime is primarily worked because we don't have enough people to do to meet minimum staffing requirements.
Yes, backfilling for officers that are not present or at academy training or calling sick or out injured, things of that nature. Yes.
Okay. And so I guess first, has anyone done an analysis of the cost to the police department of having to pay someone time and a half, 4 hours for maybe an hour of work, 8 hours for 5 hours of work, as opposed to hiring another person to do it?
Probably not an analysis in that way, but we go through the process every year at budget time when someone says, why is your overtime so high? And we make reference to it. So, but no official analysis, but certainly we go through this process every year at budget time because so much is attributed.
Because I think what happens is if workers feel like they need to work overtime to afford to live somewhere, it's because the base rate is not high enough. And so maybe that's something we need to look at. But do you think is the reason why there are not enough staff because not enough people are applying, because our academy system, it needs to be ramped up? What's the obstacle?
So I can't certainly, say that I know exactly what the reason is. I do know that there's a strong public sentiment around policing in the country in general, and it's just not our department, it's just nationwide around being able to attract and retain people in this field. And so a lot of it has to do with usually the negativity associated with it. Regardless of the good work that we do, any negative piece of work seems to get magnified multiply, for a long period of time. And there's a generation of particularly younger people today that don't want to be associated with anything that's considered negative. And the fact is that, that they're very important to the work that we do because they're our future. And so this is really important work. We work, for the public. We work with the public, and we need young people to reflect our department around that. And so that's why it's so important for us to clear up misinformation that goes out there around certain things and the reasons why we do what we do. We're here to save lives, to protect the public, to serve the public, and that's it. Do officers make mistakes from time to time? Yes, we do, just like every other field and every other group. But we're not here to do harm on purpose. That's not who we are as a group.
Okay, thanks. Because we're just talking about the budget, I'm just trying to zero in on cost and what we can do. So I think you mentioned this morning that the department's had a 4% decrease in overtime. Is that? Am I remembering
On
correctly?
On the replacement overtime.
Okay.
When officers are out injured or sick or on vacation, or when we have to fill in for an officer or train in when an officer's not there, that position.
And is that for the sworn officers? That's that figure? Yes. Okay. Okay. And do you know? So what do you know how many officers are in the medically? I'm sorry. What's the medically incapacitated at the time? Right now?
133.
Okay.
Oh, excuse me, 130.
And is there any, what's the, do you have any policies in place, like at what point officers should be moved into retirement or
Yeah, we've had quite a few move into the retirement section. We've, I think, reduced that quite a bit from last year. Yeah.
We reduced it significantly from last year. I want to say that this time last year, we were well over 200 officers out injured, and we moved quite a few people to the retirement process.
Okay.
Rather than waiting, Tim Smith from the retirement board would always say, if an officer's out around a year or more, we should start moving the retirement because chances are they're not coming back.
Okay. And then, so my understanding under the new CBA is that the department has had sworn officers doing assignments for details. Is that still continue? But now under the new CBA, you're allowed to contract out to civilians, I guess, to do that, or through an are sworn officers in Boston still doing that kind of work? How many?
Yeah, and so I think currently there are still some, but that we're moving to remove, all of them and have, either a vendor do it themselves or
okay,
offload that work to someone else.
Do you know? Does anyone have the number of people doing that? Sorry.
Not currently, but we can get you that number.
Okay.
Very
soon. Okay. Thank you. And sorry. Do you? And then have you contracted with medical examiners to examine? Because we're shifting away from disability. People are out on disability from arbitration, I guess, to using a medical examiner. How's that going?
So I think medical is for deceased people, but we do have medical staff on staff. And I think he's making reference to.
So we have an occupational health department within the Boston Police Department that will have the out injured officers come in every 2 weeks just for evaluation. They are required to bring any medical documentation updates. But with respect to having the independent medical exam, I think with the new contracts for the BPPA, as I understand it, that if we're bringing back an officer to modified duty, light duty, and their doctor says no, and we say yes, we can send them for an IME, an independent medical exam, and that will determine whether or not the officer comes back on a modified duty only, though.
We'll expedite that process so people aren't sitting out there.
Okay. Sorry, just getting back to overtime for a second. You look at your department's budget over the years, there's, spending over the budget on overtime. That number has gone just way up. It was like over 30 million, I think, last year. So what's happening? What is the budget for overtime for next year? What was it for last year?
Yeah, and I think it's I mean, the projection is kind of arbitrary. We do a lot of events, particularly additional the staffing through overtime, whether it's protests. There's a whole host of events that, we end up taking on, and it's through overtime based on what's happening. So
21.5% of our total overtime is spent on special event staffing, just to give an idea of the piece of the pie that encompasses.
And so I guess what's budgeted is for overtime for next year?
Overtime budgeted for next year in the recommended fiscal year 25 is 50.6 million. 50.6 million.
Okay, sorry, and was that similar to last year? Do you?
Last year, it was, the appropriation for last year for fiscal year 24 for overtime was 49.6 million.
Okay, and then we ended up spending like 70, it was like 30 million over, I believe. And then the expectation, I mean, you don't have any control, and it could be due to the unique nature of, the demands we put on our police department. But the expectation is there'll be, I mean, it's been over every year. I don't know, I just looked back 3 years. It's been over by a lot. Is the expectation it'll be over?
maybe the events will go down, maybe the national issues will go down, maybe we'll have a very peaceful year across the board, and hopefully that will go down as well. We're making a conscious effort, though, to try to reduce our overtime, because it's just not good for the wellness of the people who do the work. And so, that is something we're really trying to do. But we are a major city. We do have a lot of events here. Things are outside of our control, particularly with protests and people who want to come to our city, sometimes just to send messages and things of that nature that we have to provide public safety for. And I think that's the cost that happens sometimes with a city like ourselves, that people want to come here to send messages. So we hear you. We're trying to reduce our overtime multiple ways for multiple reasons. But I don't have a crystal ball about the future. I wish I did.
Okay, yeah, and we also have a pretty good basketball and hockey team, so maybe there'll be
and used
some
to be
extra
baseball.
Yes, yeah, near future. Thank you, Chair.
What is the series for the Bruins now?
I don't put me on.
Just going on the same line of questioning, overtime. You said 21.5% of overtime is for special events. Do you have the breakdown of like what's forced overtime and the rest of the pie?
Yeah, so we can certainly break it down for you in more detail after, but just to give you an idea, the largest percentage of overtime relates to extended tours, which is oftentimes the result of holding staff over as a result of an event happening in the city or unanticipated event. The second largest is that replacement cost, which is down from FY23 by 4.4%. And then the third largest category is special events at 21.5%. And included in our overtime expenditures also are our larger scale projects like Mass and Cass, for example. But we can do a further breakdown for you.
Got it. And do we know what, for FY24, where we're going to end up in terms of like actual overtime expenditure? I mean, we have FY24 year-to-date through March.
Mm-hmm.
Estimating between now and
For the rest
July.
of the, yeah. If you had a just...
We're probably going to, we usually do estimates in terms of hours because of the contracts, the collective bargaining agreements. Sometimes, like for example, my overtime projection last year is probably a lot more than it was, that it would be this year because the contracts have been settled, but we're projecting roughly about 1.4 million hours in overtime by year end.
And what that translates into how much dollars? So
The new contracts just went in, so that dollar amount would be different than before the contract. So,
it's a large amount if my math is right.
Correct.
It's a large amount. And how much of the projected overtime is civilian versus sworn officers?
Yeah, I would say the majority, far majority of it is sworn.
Got it.
You know, we verify, but I can.
The majority is sworn. In the areas that way we see civilian overtime would be operations because of, you know, staffing, but actually that's improved tremendously. But even like for example, you might see a lot of overtime in our fleet division because obviously we need to make sure that vehicles are being maintained. And I believe we have 9 open vacancies for fleet mechanics there as well, so they are pulling guys in on overtime. But I would like to point out that we also get reimbursed by Ford for the warranty work that we do in-house versus Ford doing it. So and that goes right into the general fund every month.
And wait, and what line item would that be reimbursed to? Would that be reimbursed to the?
It would come in as miscellaneous income under the 4,000 series, the revenue account.
Okay.
It goes right into the general fund.
Thanks. And there's a $5 million increase in the Bureau of Professional Development personnel costs. It goes from $6 million to $11 million. Can you just speak to the increased investment inside of that department?
Yeah, it's the academy class increase.
It's the academy class, okay. So this is like the size, or how many, we're getting more academy classes this year than?
The size of it and beefing up the additional personnel to the academy, just to staff them up as we get bigger classes. As the classes go away or we graduate, they shrink back down. We put people back in the district. So.
Okay. And then can you give insight into these other large changes for FY25? I think you spoke to the personnel for field services, but personnel for investigative services is decreasing by $8 million. Why? Can you speak to that?
Yeah, it's the contract salary increases for the detectives.
Okay. And then Bureau of Community Engagement Contractor Services is down $660,000.
It's personnel, but it's also too, like if someone transfers to another district, that they'll go over to that district, so there could be a transfer in there as well. Sometimes the Bureau of Professional Development, which includes the academy, all the recruits are assigned to the academy even upon graduation, and sometimes the chart fields aren't updated in a fashion that should, so when they go to the district, they should be charted to the district, whereas they still sit in the academy, even though they're at the district, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's a bookkeeping item.
Yep, no, that makes sense. And then you saw a 300% jump in people taking the civil service exam in 2024. How does the recruiting pipeline for the police look?
Well, that was very hopeful to be able to increase that, but you know, we're continuing. We have to keep trying all the time, so to make sure that we have enough people in the pipeline, so we can get a bigger class, so we can get more people in around that. So that's going to be an ongoing effort. We were very hopeful about that last process to increase the number of people to take the exam.
And then, you know, Boston has it. I forgot, it's an 80% decrease, or, you know, our crime rates have dropped. And when we see, you know, our crime rates drop like this, are our staff or our detective or our police officers, are they looked or are they pushed to reopen some of those cold cases?
So, you know, again, you know, one of the things that we do around the, you know, community ComStat is get input from the community. So as major violent crime shifts, people complain about quality of life issues, and so that's where we shift our resources to the quality of life issues around that. You know, as far as the, you know, the homicides, the older ones, you know, we will always, you know, take a look at those, particularly when there's technologies that can help solve or resolve some of those things around that. And so we will look to do that, but what we do is we put our resources usually to where the people need it or want it around that. And so, you know, I'm looking forward to the day when we are concerned about jaywalkers as opposed to any other, criminal stat that's out there. And that's a good thing around that. But the fact is we still, we were down in every single category except for, larcenies and things of that nature. And the business community is certainly going to say that we are, not out of the water when it comes to those issues around the things that they're facing right now. And that's where we're trying to shift our resources to address their current needs to make sure that the business community in the city see the reflection of the good work we can do to keep people safe.
And when it goes to the business community, and I hear loud and clear from all business districts, but just want us to keep in mind, like there's certain business districts that, can't throw, $2 million at security services, and they're also asking for increased presence, code 19 and walk and talk. So, and that's also where, the concentration of, some of the crime that we are putting in this data. So I just want to make sure that we're conscious of those districts as well.
Yeah, we are aware that the smaller mom and pop places are just as important as the bigger places too. So we are trying to reflect that in the services we provide.
And then you mentioned this morning that we're bringing on an average of 108 sworn officers per year, but losing an average of 131 for the past 3 years. And that's sworn officers. From your numbers, you have 294 civilian vacancies right now. What has that average been over the past 3 years? Is it going up or down?
I'm seeing it go down slightly. It seems like since COVID, we've been struggling with, similar to other industries and services, filling our vacancies. We are hiring. We've just done some significant hiring at the Boston Police Department, so I think that number will continue to go down, but it is significantly high, and it has been since COVID.
I mean, so, with the 911, their contracts being settled, we are now settling down and actually being able to hire there, which there was a big gap in that. They were down quite a few, particularly in the civilian positions, and we're addressing that slowly, but hopefully, we're good to see signs that we're actually hiring people, because there was a long period there where we were having a hard time even just filling those roles, but now we are filling some of those positions, so that's a really good thing.
And if I could just get, for our records, last 3 years, hired, sworn, and civilian officers. That is my questions. Now we'll go to public testimony. When your name is called, please come down to one of the two podiums. State your name, neighborhood, and/or organization affiliation. Please speak into the microphone. Please keep your comments to 2 minutes. We'll start online. And we'll have Vina.
Hi, I'm just confirming that y'all just called my name?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So hi, my name is Vina. I'm from District 3. And I am demanding that Mayor Wu and the city councilors reject the mayor's proposed $50 million increase to the police budget and cut payroll, overtime, equipment, and contracts. Instead of giving BPD $455 million in the long term, we need to divest 30% from BPD. And we need to invest in a people's budget, including participatory budgeting, community mental health response, youth jobs, and affordable housing. I also oppose BPD's deadly exchange training with Israel's military, sweeps of unhoused people, and central lockup powers. 10 years ago, I was a teenager rallying for youth jobs. And here I am, 10 years later, as an adult advocating for the same thing. Youth who have home and financial issues are struggling in their leadership development and academia because of lack of capacity and mental health issues. Many young people I met throughout my years of being a youth worker have expressed finding safe spaces and programming that also supports their mental health journey while providing financial support to relieve some of their stress at home. Every year, the police budget increased for at least $6 to $8 million in regular payroll that they don't even spend. Last year, 656 officers made more than $50,000 a year in overtime. They're getting more in overtime than most Black and brown residents earn for their entire jobs. Last year, 99 officers made more than $100,000 a year in overtime as well. Many families are struggling to pay their bills or even have food on the table from their regular full-time jobs. That is literally so traumatizing. And I'm here to advocate to let youth be youth and support them to develop into our future leaders through programming, youth jobs, and community mental health response. Thank you.
Thank you. Zachary Lee?
Hey. Yeah, my name is Zachary Lee. I live in JP. And yeah, I'm here today to voice support for similar demands to what Vina just said. I want to say, I know, Commissioner, you mentioned before about youth like not being so interested in being associated with the police or joining the police, and I want to say that I think for many of us, we don't see the police as an effective solution for public safety, and that's a reason why. And the solutions that we do see for public safety get at like the root causes of a lot of the issues that police are addressing symptoms of. And so for these reasons, I support rejecting this $50 million increase for the police budget. And I guess I also want to say that I think the participatory budgeting part of that suggestion is important, because I know that I'm sure you all hear things all the time of people asking for invest in youth jobs, invest in housing, in mental health services, and I know that there's probably a lot of discussion about like, well, how are we going to do that to make everybody happy? And I think that giving power back to community as much as possible means that, instead of you guys trying to like guess and like have a ton of conversations with constituents and people to try to figure out the best solution, that if community has more power, more, if there was more democracy, right, in terms of determining what we do, then you all don't have to like try to guess at things, because if people have power to actually enact policy and really make their voice heard, instead of like coming to these hearings and like saying stuff and hoping that stuff happens, right? Like we don't have any power, right, as coming to these hearings where we're sort of like just hoping that people listen. So I guess I just want to voice support, like extra support for the participatory budgeting part of that as part of the solution. Thanks.
Thank you. Joaquin?
Hello, City Council. My name is Joaquin Lambos. I'm a student at Boston Latin Academy, and I'm a resident of Roxbury. I'm also a member of Youth Justice and Power Union, and I'm here demanding that the City Council rejects the mayor's proposed $50 million increase to the police budget and cut payroll, overtime, equipment, and contracts. Instead of giving BPD $455 million, in 2020, Mayor Wu promised to reduce the police's budget by 10%, and yet she still has not upheld this promise. Mayor Wu also made the promise to cap overtime for individual officers. Again, this was another broken promise. Last year, 2,038 officers made overtime, which is more than 10% of the regular pay, and 583 officers made overtime that is more than 50% of their regular pay. Again, last year, 656 officers made over $50,000 in overtime, which is more, and they're getting paid more in overtime than most Black and brown residents earn in their jobs in general. The idea that all overtime spending is required by law or police contract is a myth. Police captains and BPD leaders are given flexible overtime hours to give out. These promises must be upheld. I demand that city councilors and Mayor Wu reject the $50 million increase to the police budget and cap overtime, and instead use this money for things such as the mental health crisis response and participatory budgeting to actually support the community as promised. Thank you.
Thank you. Ella Simone?
Hi, my name is Ella Simone, and I'm 16 years old from the Dorchester neighborhood. I'm here to demand two things from Mayor Wu and the city councilors. One, reject the mayor's proposed $50 million increase to the police budget. Two, cut the payroll, overtime equipment, and contracts. Instead of giving BPD $455 million, in the long term, we need to divest 30% from BPD. Last year, 99 officers made more than $100,000 a year in overtime. Instead, we need to reinvest this money towards things our community needs, such as the mental health crisis response project that youth and the older generation can lead to. Instead of the police, because of how poorly they treat mental health crises, which came from a pilot initiative that was announced by the previous administration on August 5th, 2021, to help provide the best possible mental health crisis response for Boston residents. Our community trusts people who come from and share similar stories. We need more representation from our communities. I will end this by repeating that it is imperative to use the divested funds, 30% from the BPD's overtime fund, to fund a community-led, non-carceral mental health crisis response. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Amaya?
Hi, my name is Amaya French. I live in Dorchester, and I demand that Mayor Wu and the city councilors freeze police hiring and stop Mayor Wu's 2 mega class and cap overtime. The city must put the police budget into real community needs because just like adults, youth advocate for their families and help with utilities in their homes, such as paying bills, groceries, and etc. Mayor Wu has broken her promise to cut the police budget or move money into the community. Instead, she has increased the budget from $395 million to $405 million a year, last year. She doubled the class of new police officers, and this year she is committed to increasing the BPD budget by an additional $50 million. This further pushes away my trust towards the city council because you say you are here for the people, while minorities are having a struggle living in affordable housing and mental health. Many organizations, such as the one I'm in, Youth Justice Empowering Union, have been fighting for higher pay rates and have been neglected. Instead of hiring classes of new officers to maintain a violent system, the city council can put money into alternatives that actually make communities healthy and safe. I urge them to move those funds to food deserts, cleaner and safer schools, and proper affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Alexa?
Hi, my name is Alexa. I live in Dorchester, and I'm 15. I demand that Mayor Wu and the city councilors reject the mayor's proposed $50 million increase from the police budget to grant them a total budget of $455 million. In the future, we need to divest 30% from BPD, invest in a people's budget, including participatory budgeting, community mental health response, youth jobs, and affordable housing. I'd like to focus on cutting equipment and contracts. Mayor Wu is adding $5.1 million for equipment and contracts. This is a misallocation of resources. Police don't need more money for weapons, military equipment, and drones. More weapons does not equal more safety. In my opinion, it leaves more space for an escalation in the use of force. Arming police with more weapons does not make our communities safer. If we provide alternatives to policing, we can lower crime rates and meet the needs of our people. The City Council has the power to move money from the police budget to investments that actually keep the community safe. I urge the City Council to reject the $50 million increase in 2024. I urge them to move these funds into the community, funding things like affordable housing, mental health crisis response, and participatory budgeting. Affordable housing shouldn't have to be so difficult to access. Families are struggling, and you're putting more money into arming police officers. We need to meet the needs of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Sukai?
My name is Sakai Rollins, and I'm a concerned resident of District 4, a neighborhood where my family has lived for generations. I demand that Mayor Wu and the city councilors reject the mayor's proposed $50 million increase for the police budget that would grant them a total budget of $455 million. In the future, we need to divest 30% from the BPD. Invest in a people's budget, including participatory budgeting, community mental health response, youth jobs, and affordable housing. Cut overtime, equipment, and contracts instead of increasing them, and cap overtime. The proposed $50.6 million in police overtime is up $44 million from last year. $50.6 million in police overtime alone is around $5 million more than the following departments combined: equity inclusion, economic opportunity and inclusion, community engagement and neighborhood services, public facilities department. The funds allocated to the police overtime budget alone make it clear that the BPD is a budgetary leech, sucking at the hard-earned taxpayer funds that are sorely needed by other departments and organizations that provide us real support and safety. There have been so many times when my brothers and sisters have needed a place to go after school, but couldn't because budget funds aren't allocated towards things like keeping our neighborhood library open past 6 p.m., or when my neighbors and family have been pushed out of our homes due to rent increases that we couldn't sustain. It's hard to overstate how far taxpayer dollars could go if they were put into groups that actually help Boston become a better place. We need $40 million for participatory budgeting, which is a mere 1% of the budget. Black and brown communities must have the power to decide how to invest and what they actually need to be safe and healthy, rather than $455 million going to police. The city should fund $2.6 million for community-led mental health crisis response that grants community leaders training in de-escalation and crisis prevention. Those experiencing crisis deserve compassion and care, not more policing. Your consideration of these matters and solution is of the utmost importance. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris?
Hello, my name is Chris, or Christian. I'm from Roxbury, and I demand stopping Mayor Wu's $50 million increase to the BPT budget and the mega classes of new officers, overtime, equipment, and contracts. We need to invest in participatory budgeting, mental health crisis response, youth jobs, and affordable housing. But today, I'm focusing on why we should cap overtime and cut it. One of the reasons is they can get up to double their pay. The highest last year was around $221,579.41. Also, officers get around an average of $29,500 in overtime. For sergeants, they get an average of $53,000 in overtime, and for lieutenants, they get an average of around $57,400 in overtime. What does all this mean? They get paid a lot. And they can do way more in overtime. Since there's no cap, they can just keep doing it for a whole year. And why would we want that money in the first place? Well, we can use that money in other places such as youth jobs or housing. Like for housing, for example, people can be born into the world, and because people are born into the world, you need different places to go. Like if you have a child or the rent keeps going up, you would want to move to get more affordable housing. But since there's a lack of affordable housing, it makes it hard to find affordable homes. So I say, please stop the 50 million increase, and that's all.
Thank you. Victoria?
Hello, my name is Victoria. I'm a resident of Dorchester, and I've been living here my whole life. The Boston Police budget is given large amounts of the Boston Police budget is given large amounts of the Boston budget to supposedly enforce laws and help citizens, but that is not what has been done in Boston. The Boston budget gets wasted, and the officers get paid with large amounts of money. With overtime, Boston police make more money than half of the Boston citizens through overtime. In Boston, the median net worth of a black family is $8, while the net worth of a white family in Boston is $247,500. In 2023, 11 police officers made more than $1,500,000 through overtime alone. This shows that how the money in Boston is put to the use of the police officers who don't use their power for justice and get paid while doing that. That is why Boston residents call for the cap of police overtime officers in Boston. Instead, we should use it for youth jobs to help the economic status of youth employers, as well as inner city transportation to help transportation go much smoother and faster. Thank you.
Thank you. Nosika?
Hello. My name is Nosika, and I am from Hyde Park. I'm here to hold city councilors responsible for fixing the mistakes that Mayor Wu is doing. She obviously can't be trusted because every idea she brews under the guise of helping the community has been a lie. She does nothing but boost the police budget, but when asked to make housing affordable, to increase access to healthy foods, to support the mental health crisis response, to do anything to fund our community, her response is her hands are tied and that there's no money to be moved to help. We have people who can't find housing, children sleeping in the airport or outside of BMC. We have people going hungry. Do you know how out of touch you have to be to think that taking money from the police and putting it into the community is too much of an ask? We don't need police, we need housing security, we need food security, we need healthcare, we need resources, we need you guys to do the jobs that you were elected to do. Last time I checked, buddying up to the cops and making sure that they can afford their vacation homes is not why you were voted in. Last time I checked, no one ran on a campaign, vote for me, you go hungry, but the police go richer. My demand is to cut overtime and cap overtime. Mayor Wu promised to cut overtime and instead wants to increase the budget from $43.9 million to $50.6 million. We've seen that cutting is not the only solution because time and time again, police officers purposely go over the budget. So don't just cut overtime, cap it. Force them to use the insane amount of resources that they already have. And I've heard the argument before, cutting cops' budget doesn't affect cops, but all their projects. Well, my response to that argument is, if you believe so much in your projects, take a cut in your salary and see your project to completion. If you can't do that, then don't come here and ask that we fund your lifestyle when people's lifestyle is living in tents and not being able to bathe or eat. You said it yourself, we've had less cops this year, these past few years actually, and yet I've yet to see Boston combust into Gotham City itself. So obviously we don't need more cops. Your projected $50.6 million is not the overtime budget for next year. It is just the floor for next year. Reject the mayor's proposed $50 million increase to the police budget and cut payroll, overtime, equipment, and contracts. Instead of giving BPD $455 million, in the long term, we need to divest from the police department. Thank you so much.
George?
Good evening. My name is George Lee. I'm an organizer with Youth Justice and Power Union. We need to confront a fundamental myth. It's an idea that has long been at the root of racist policies and divestment from Black and brown communities in Boston. The mayor wants to fund $455 million for BPD because of the myth that police keep communities safe, the myth that more police equals more safety. To all the politicians here, think honestly about what helped you grow. Good schools, mentors, programs, housing, food, jobs, healthcare, transportation. That's what we need, not police. That's what a lot of wealthy suburbs with mostly white people have instead of pouring money into police. But here in Boston, police exist to sweep unhoused people off the streets and criminalize people for being poor. It's not rocket science. The more we invest in community needs and community-led solutions to safety, the safer and healthier we'll be. That's the point of divesting from police. It's to reinvest. Imagine if we hired dozens of community-based mental health responders. The police would be happy to just keep their budget, keep hiring police, and keep arresting people. But we need to have a different vision. With more community-based safety like those responders, then there would be less calls for police to respond to and no reason to keep hiring as many police. Similarly, with more housing and voluntary treatment, there are less unhoused people and no reason to hire police to take down tents and arrest people. Police don't address root causes. They don't prevent violence. They cause violence. The police department is not designed to save lives, which is the talking point that Commissioner Cox keeps repeating. They destroy lives. There's been a lot of talk today about overtime and police staffing. Commissioner Cox says that there's an image problem that makes people not apply to be police officers. It's not an image problem. It's a reality problem. The reality is that some nice community programs and youth programs in the police department cover up that the main purpose of the department is to arrest people. It's a reality about a harmful department whose proposed $455 million budget funds violence and takes away money from community needs. For example, how is the overtime budget more than the entire city budget for building affordable housing? So use that clarity of vision to understand we don't need to hire more officers and that we can invest in community needs and actually have fewer officers. We don't need Michelle Wu's mega class of 200 police, which is more than Marty Walsh hired each year. We can freeze hiring and put that money where it will actually make a difference. Councilor Weber, hiring police also does not cut overtime. I know you mentioned the ACLU's looking at different issues around ShotSpotter and other programs. Fundamentally, many police view overtime as a perk. They fight tooth and nail to protect it in their contract. The ACLU also has a report showing how increased police staffing does not decrease overtime. And the mayor included $44 million in overtime last year, so this year she's proposing a $7 million increase. That's $7 million that could be moved to community solutions instead, on top of the $5.1 million being added for equipment and supplies that the police don't need. My last point is that Michelle Wu, as mayor, you should invest in real solutions. Invest in housing and voluntary treatment. Don't invest in sweeping people off the streets with the police. Invest in jobs so people can afford to live. Don't invest in arresting people because they're poor, because they don't have jobs. The City Council also just passed a ceasefire resolution. Michelle Wu, use your leadership to speak out against the bombing and starving that's happening in Palestine. Ban BPD from getting trained by Israel's military and tell universities to respect democracy, rather than adding $50 million into BPD to arrest peaceful protesters and who cause suffering and arrest people in Black and brown communities every day.
Thank you. Just want to thank everyone who showed up today for public testimony. Now I'll go back to my council colleagues for second rounds of questions. Councilor Fernandez-Anderson, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I'm going to go back to my previous questions just so that I can get the numbers right, or the math done correctly, and then a little bit about community policing or engagement. So for your operating budget, you are recommending, or the administration is recommending $454,895,987. And then when you do the math, and you subtract the 404 and some odd dollars off from FY24, you get 49 million or 49,920. Could you please tell me if that number is correct, assuming smooth spending all the way to the end of the fiscal year FY24, or is that number what's projected, assuming smooth spending by the end of FY24? The 409 million.
Where's the 409 million coming from?
These are the numbers that we were provided with through our budget analyst provided to us.
So I'm looking at our total appropriation for fiscal year 24 to be $444,109,789.
For 24?
$444,109,789. And that's coming right off the city's website.
And that's 700 and what?
789.
Thank you. And I think with these numbers, then when you do the math, it's a lot different.
It's an $11 million increase, or 2% over last year's budget.
11 million increase?
That's exactly $10,784,171, or a 2% increase over last year's budget.
Thank you. And then you mentioned that of the contracts, 5 million of that went to contracts? Earlier in my questions, I think I was asking you of the increase, how much of it would go to contracts?
Our contracts increased by approximately $3 million compared to last year. And because in that number is the promotional exam amount, along with an increase in our Axon body-worn camera contract that we have.
Is that like contractual though? That's not personnel?
It's contractual, yes.
Okay. And then, so what's that total, like 3 million plus, what's the math?
For the change over last year?
Yes, please.
It's $2,999,770.
And so do we still have about 8 million left? Or less than 8 million?
As far as that increase, well, lease purchases increased by 1.9 million. Current charges increased by 333,000. And then auto energy supplies decreased by 595,000. So it's a combination of like some small increases to the big ones, which is contractual service and lease purchases.
Okay. Okay, so that makes a lot more sense in terms of like the numbers adding up. Thank you. I did notice that, because I went through all of the decreases and increases, and so I did this last year, so I think now I'm at a more advantageous position to actually look at the numbers more carefully. I think the chair is doing a better job than I was doing. You're doing amazing, but it's a lot to do the calculation, to do the math, to manage everyone, and to like think through all of this. So, props go through the chair. You're doing amazing, and but I'm very grateful to be in this seat this time to really ask like questions that I feel are just more at ease. And in terms of your professional standards, you have an increase in contractuals allocations from FY24 to 25. It's like really significant. It's like almost $2 million. Can you tell me why?
Where are you looking, Counselor?
If you look at professional standards, let me see. When you go to the police department and contractual services under Bureau of Professional Standards. There's a huge increase, FY24, so this is under Bureau of Professional Standards, FY24 appropriation, 130,118, and FY25 recommended 1,923,408. I mean, with a huge increase like that, I just want to know, like, what is professional standards doing, and what is the money for?
Professional development or professional standards? I'm sorry.
Standards. I guess the other question too, while you look at that, for the police commissioner's office, contractual services of 999, it's about $1 million. Can you please educate me on what contractual services, or what would you spend $1 million on?
So what, can you point me to a page that you're looking
Page
at?
378 in the budget book for non-personnel services. It says Program 7, Bureau of Professional Standards, Personnel Services 3.8, and then non-personnel is 1.96.
Okay, so it's not all just contractual services, but I'd have to drill down on my backup, which I don't have here, is what makes up that 1.9 million, but I can certainly provide that.
Okay, thank you. You could see how, like, from our point of view, when we see funds that we can't explain, like, because we're not, you know what I mean? If you can give us the information and we can actually say, this is what it's for, and that makes sense, like the way you just broke down the math, you're like, hey, it's not a 50 million increase, it's actually this. And I think right now, what the numbers that we were looking at, the 404 million for overall, was based on what's expended till now, and then there's still like 40 million to be spent. And so for 24 would be, as you explained, 444, not 404 million. So if we understand that in detail, then we can make sense and say, oh no, this makes sense. So what about the contractual about $1 million in the commissioner's office for contractual?
So in the commissioners, and just if I could back up, I'm looking at professional standards.
Yes.
I mean, obviously, it's a guess, but I bet you that's where OBM put the placeholder for the 1.8 million for the promotional exam.
Okay. Could you please, on record, through the chair, later on,
I can confirm that.
Please.
The commissioner's budget, under the commissioner's budget is included is the Gardner contract for peer support. That's roughly around $300,000. And one of our new initiatives which is a priority for the commissioner, is CLEAR accreditation. There's approximately $705,000 in his budget for the CLEAR accreditation to start in fiscal year 25.
That adds up. Thank you. There's a decrease about $200,000 in personnel. Commissioner, who did you fire? What's going on? Is there a reason for the decrease?
Not that I'm aware of, but I'd have to look at the personnel listed there.
The recommendation is to about 200,000 less, unless it's just like, hey, we didn't hire and we don't need that much money. And through the chair also, if you can answer that. And then for community engagement, back to Mr. Chair's question. For community engagement, actually, you mentioned something about personnel, and I understood that because there was about $100,000 decrease in personnel in community engagement. So that sounds like one position gone, but contractual amount for FY24 was $697,500. It went down to recommended amount of just $15,500. If you put me in Bureau of Community Engagement and you tell me, look, you have about $4 million to hire, but you give me no contractual money, what am I going to do?
That money that was in fiscal year 24 was where the $582,000 of Youth Connect set. It should have been moved to Office of Research and Development, and that has been since transferred. So that was there. It was a valid line item, but it was placed under the Bureau of Community Engagement, instead of going into the Office of Research and Development, who kind of works hand in hand with the folks at Youth Connect.
That makes sense. What I'm saying is, do you guys encourage the Bureau of Community Engagement to provide any type of community engagement? And doesn't that take money to do in terms of like programmatic costs? Is there like, you know, like a basketball something and I got to spend money, where do I get the money from if I'm in that
But
department?
They do have their own non-personnel budget that they submit to us every year, and that we obviously add all the departments up and submit one budget to the Office of Budget Management. But I'll be honest with you that there are some divisions or departments that don't have a budget, but if they need something, we always, you know, try to accommodate.
It would be nice if it's clear here so that they have an expectation. We understand that there's an investment, there's an actual intentional investment to do that.
And we have a foundation that helps out as well around engagement.
We'll do a third round if you have additional questions.
This sucks. Thank you.
All right.
We'll be back.
We'll be back. Councilor Murphy?
Thank you for being here with us all day, answering our questions. I guess the teacher in me, I don't like those absolute statements like always and never, so I do just want to go on the record to say I do not believe that the police department causes crime in the city of Boston, so I just want to state that. And no one wants to need you, but when we do, right? So thank you. You've been there in the past for my family, so I do just want to go on the record saying thank you when you do show up. Also, today we've heard a lot about the investments that continue to grow in our community policing, which we talk a lot about having, you know, a national standard of community policing and the outreach we do, and we see our police officers who are directly working under Superintendent Chin, but I would say I see many non-community service offices playing basketball and reaching out to teachers and parents and families to help support our youth and our seniors. I do say our seniors seem to have the most fun with our police officers. So thank you for involving yourself in their need. We've had many hearings with Age Strong and making sure that we're providing for our seniors, and I know the police always show up for them also. So thank you for that. Just one question about promotions. When we're holding back on promotions because there's staffing shortages for our patrolmen, patrolwomen, can you just talk me through that? Because I do hear from people who feel like they missed the next round, they have to take the test again, they have to study for the next exam because there might be openings, but we're not promoting because it would cause, you know, a void. So how do you make that choice between promoting up or keeping the bodies in the other departments?
And so you look at it from a perspective of, you know, do we want to be top heavy and no officers, or have officers and not, you know, all the supervision that they should or need and require? So it's a balancing act. And so what we try to do is just, we have a lot of, you know, empty open positions. And so instead of just filling them like we always did, like we were a certain size before to draw from the officer pool, we're systematically trying to do it basically around promotions, not promotions, but the academy classes that come out. So at least we know there's a supply of new personnel coming into the department at the same time that we're pulling away from that. And so that's really the thought process behind what we're currently doing. In the end, you know, we're still trying to fill those positions, but we're just trying to be mindful of the number of officers we have.
Thank you. And I'll just end by saying I appreciate the public testimony. Thank you all for being here. I do often say I wish there was the same political will and pushback from our residents when it comes to our $1.7 billion school budget. And we're not, you know, decrease enrollment year after year, and many of our students aren't receiving the quality education that they need. So I know myself and many of my colleagues will continue to advocate in that department also. But thank you for being here, and that's all, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Flynn, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioner, again for being here, and your team as well. Councillor Murphy recognized Superintendent Chen as also, so I also want to acknowledge his work across the city on community engagement. That team does a tremendous job, so just want to say thank you to the superintendent and the team. I also want to say thank you, Lisa, for your testimony and your important leadership as well. Whether it's to Lisa or to the Commissioner, we hear about cutting the police budget, cutting the overtime budget. We were close to doing that last year, as you know. But just walk me through it. If we ever cut the police budget, if we cut the overtime budget, we cut the police budget, tell me, Commissioner or Lisa, what happens? What impact does that have? And how do the police respond? You're still going to fill the overtime shifts because we have to in the name of public safety, but tell me the mechanics of what happens with the payroll, with the accounting, with finances.
Well, Lisa could certainly speak to the finance end of it, but contractually there's some things that we have to do around that. But more importantly, public safety is a big deal. And so because of the fact is most of the overtime we do is related to public safety events, we would have to probably really reconsider how we deploy our officers across the board just to make sure we meet the highest public safety needs. And so, I don't like to speculate on that because, that's not currently where we are, and thankfully so. But the fact is that there's an impact. There's an impact on communities, and there's an impact on the calls we go to. Calls we currently go to, we probably wouldn't go to. There would be a tremendous impact on public safety across the board, and thankfully, we're not to that point around that. So, Lisa.
I mean, if we cut the overtime and obviously certain, as the Commissioner said, certain things would not happen, but deployment would be changing and revisited, but we cut the overtime, they don't get paid.
Right.
I would say it this way: Boston wouldn't be the same city it would be. As far as the nature of events, the parades, the festivals, the cultural events that we have in the city, if we couldn't provide public safety to it, they probably wouldn't occur, at least to the extent that they currently do. And that's just on the nice events and the friendly events in the city. We serve many different functions within, our city, as well as, other things. We've talked a ton about speeding, revelers, things of that nature in the city where we address certain things. When public safety goes down, it actually attracts people that actually want to commit crimes. And then, the city would be an attractive nuisance to people who might want to come here because of the fact that we lack public safety in that way. So I don't even want to go down the road of what could happen.
I understand.
But a lot of negative things could come from that.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, Lisa. It should also be noted that when police are working overtime, that overtime, Commissioner and Lisa, as you know better than I do, but that's not factored into someone's retirement.
No, it's not pension eligible.
And details are not factored into retirement either.
No, it's not. They're not pension eligible.
So their pension is based on their salary.
Correct.
So even though we hear a police officer making $200,000, $300,000, their pension when they retire is based on their salary.
Their highest 3 years, but that does not include overtime or details.
Yeah. No, thank you for highlighting that because I don't think the public really realizes that. And the other aspect of it, Commissioner, I wanted to highlight is the police officers. It's mandatory. Oftentimes, it's mandatory overtime. They are being asked by their supervisor to work an extra shift because the manning levels that we have. And the reason I bring that up, Commissioner, is we're down so many hundreds of police officers, obviously, not just here in Boston, but across the country, as you mentioned, because of the national media in the what happened to police departments across the country. But I think the conversations that we're having also has an impact on young people, as you mentioned, not wanting to be police. So the more we talk about the negative aspects of let's cut the police, divest from the police is the new phrase. It's not defund, it's divest. But that is having an impact on cities across America, Commissioner.
I mean, it certainly could be. I do know this, is that part of our job is it's a young person's job in the sense that we hire officers relatively young, and we want them to reflect the populations that we serve, that give different, diverse viewpoints and understanding the needs of the city, and that's what we are looking for. And the fact is, we are a public service, and that's what we're here to serve the public. And who better to do that than the passionate, caring young people that live in the world today. And when they come on the job, they usually find very quickly, the importance of the work. But the fact is, if sometimes you listen to the negative dialogue that's out there, they have no clue of what we do for a living. And that's sad, in some ways. But the fact is that we love young people. We need young people. The whole world does. And we're competing for them to actually want to join our ranks, just like every other industry is right now across the board, because the demographics of the population of people is changing. And so there's more openings and a lot less people to fill them. And so I think it's really important that we, have a real dialogue about what we do and not about some of the things that are put out there around people that are usually on the activist ends of the spectrum around what we do. We can get better, but we can only get better through people who want to come on board and help, be that change.
Thank you, Commissioner. Let me just end. I just have a quick note I jotted down here. Commissioner, when we have special events that you highlighted, that's mandatory overtime. Those events are scheduled, obviously, throughout the year, but a protest is not scheduled. So if there's a protest happening tonight or tomorrow, you have to be prepared now to tell officers that they need to work 16 hours. Is that correct?
Well, maybe not 16 hours, but we do deal with unscheduled events through actual extensions of overtime, and that's how we're currently dealing with some of the many unscheduled things that are going on regarding public safety issues.
We can probably expect more protests and demonstrations and other related types of events unscheduled from now until the end of the summer, I would assume, right?
I don't have a crystal ball around that, but given the volatility in the world, and particularly with elections coming up and things of that nature, it wouldn't be a stretch to speculate that. No.
We have to. So are we? I guess my question, Commissioner, are we prepared for summer months in terms of the financing of the police department, scheduling of overtime, preparing officers that they might be needed to work more shifts? What impact does that have on the staffing and manning levels? But also, what are you doing? How are you informing those officers? Maybe they have a scheduled vacation with their family that they haven't taken in a while. How do those factors play in?
Officers that are on a scheduled vacation will take their vacation. That is a right and privilege, and they certainly are able to do that. There's no doubt about that. So people who have scheduled vacation will be able to do that. And so we are mindful of that, and what we're trying to do is prioritize these events, certainly throughout the summer in general, just to make sure that we have proper coverage and that the unplanned things are lessened. But the fact is, we don't have a crystal ball of what's happening in the world, from moment to moment. And so, but we care about our employees, and the fact is that overtime is just not this magical thing where people just get a big bag of money and then they're very happy. It's like working a second job or a third job. Most people don't want to work second and third jobs, but that's what it is for the people who actually do the work. It's not this big, you just get a large amount of money. You're working a second job. You're working a third job.
Mm-hmm.
And there's very few people who want to work that way, regardless of any industry. And that's what we're sometimes asking our officers to do. It just happens to be reflected in that word overtime. And so sometimes it's projected as though it's this money that they get and they get to have a good time. The reality is they're not taking days off. They're not spending time with their family. They're not maybe taking time to enjoy life because of the fact is we require them to work so many different events. And so that's the part I don't think people necessarily understand when they talk about our budget and what we do. If there's none of this goes on, then officers work their normal shifts like everybody else. They go home, their normal shift. There's no overtime. There's no forced overtime. We're not even having this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is we live in a world that's volatile. There's more and more protests. There's more and more unscheduled events and things that happen that we have to provide public safety for, and that's what we do. And I'm pretty proud of the work of our officers to do it on a daily basis. So.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I'll just end with, and I want to ask a question. I'll just make a brief comment. When an officer is working mandatory overtime, maybe it's her or his 14th or 15th hour, certainly their skills are not as sharp as if they just started their shift at nighttime. The impact it has on your mental health, the impact it has on your physical health, interacting with the public during stressful environments. But I think at times, us in government, myself included, we have to change the language of how we speak about the role the police play in society. I go to community meetings almost every night for 7 straight years in South End, South Boston, Chinatown. In 7 years, no one's ever said to me, "Hey, Flynn, you need to cut the police budget." They say to me, "We respect the police, but can we have more police?" They actually say just the opposite. "Can I have more police here on Andrews Square? Can I have them here at the Chinatown Gate? Can I have them here near the Boston Garden?" They're asking for more police. That I've never heard anyone say to me, "Cut the police." I've never heard it. My constituents say to me just the opposite. They expect me to come here to City Hall and advocate for them and for their quality of life. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councilor Mejia, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So I take my job very serious, and I am very lucky that I get to fight and represent the people. And so I do so oftentimes very unapologetic. And I think that we are now in a moment in time where this divisiveness about pitting people against each other needs to stop, right? You all are here to do a job, and there's a lot of conflict and different decisions and opinions of what your job should be. And I've always been very clear about the fact that you all should focus on what your job is, which is the law. And then there's mental health, there's housing. You are expected to be the housing case manager, the mental health provider. There's like a whole bunch of other things that come along with your work, that this conversation around reallocating resources becomes something that is divisive. And I don't think that that's the right conversation to be having right now, and pitting people against each other. It just doesn't work for anybody, because the people who lose are the people that we are supposed to be protecting and serving and really uplifting. So we can't have conversations around public safety if we're not being honest about the lack of investments that we're making around the issues of housing, right? We can't be honest about public safety if we're not talking about the root causes of violence. Like, we have to acknowledge that the root causes of violence is what's keeping you all employed, right? And so those are the sort of things that I think the frustration for a lot of the community advocates, particularly the young people that come here to speak, it's not that they don't respect your work or would prefer that you do not exist as a department. It's just that for so many decades, the issues that are impacting low-income communities have gone unheard and, under-resourced. And so that's where the frustration comes in. And I just want to name that I'm not speaking on behalf of the young people that have spoken, but I think it's important for us to name the lack of frustration that so many people feel when it comes to fighting for the things that we have literally been dying for. And I think that your budget being the second highest is, why we're having this conversation today. And BPS is just a hot mess, too. And so, Counselor, I'm sure there'll be other advocates talking about holding BPS accountable. So I think, all of these things are interconnected. So I've been praying here quietly, just asking God to give me the strength to speak with love, which is one of the things that I've been struggling with, but here I go. I'm curious if you could just provide some data about how much of the police volunteer or overtime versus are forced to do it. So I'm curious, are people volunteering or are they being forced? And are police really being forced to do $50,000 to $100,000 in overtime? Is that forced or volunteer?
If we have overtime, if people don't volunteer for it, then we force people for it, right? So that's how that works. So if we don't get volunteers, then we go to next available person, and then they're forced to do it.
Okay. So if we have to pay overtime because we're short-staffed, right? But it doesn't cost much more money to pay overtime to supervisors versus patrol. I think it's important for us to talk a little bit about whether or not how often times about how we talk about overtime if we're paying more money in supervisor to supervise in overtime because we're choosing to run short. So basically, can you explain how this works? Because overtime has been the biggest conversation for the last 4 years. Can you just, for the record, help us understand the decision making around, because if crime has decreased, right, and you've managed to do what you've done the last year with what you have, why increase the budget? Why overtime? The numbers aren't adding up.
So, we respond to more than just crime. We provide public safety in so many different ways. And so as the city becomes more international, more worldwide, as we have more events in the city, as we have more parades and cultural festivals, as we have more championship, series or things of that nature, as we bring in outside events throughout the country here in the city, it needs public safety, and that's what we provide. And so in crime shifts, so we're having a very good spree around violent crime going down. It doesn't mean that all crime has gone down. We had 2 categories where it actually went up. And so the fact is it's not violent crime, which is a really good, so there's no loss of life, so that's exceptional, right? So we care about life tremendously, so we prioritize that, but it doesn't mean all crime has gone down. And so, we provide, service, and we do it through community policing, by building trust with the community so we can partner with others to help address the needs of our city, and we do it in multiple ways. And it's a work in progress, and it takes a lot. And I'd like to say that we're pretty exceptional about doing it.
Yeah. So let's just talk a little bit about, I'm going back to the exam. That's become the vein of my existence right now. But given that we're short-staffed and people are being forced to do mandatory overtime, summer events and such as open streets, parades, festivals, all of what you have just mentioned, what are you doing to ensure that people are going to actually have time to study and prep for the exam right after the summer? The exam is in September, right? So, which means it comes right after the summer months. And, our people, and you know what I'm talking about, our people, black and brown people, how are they gonna be able to have time to prepare if we're really serious about increasing diversity?
So I'll say this, it's a promotion exam to be a supervisor or management in the police department. If people want that and they choose to do that in their career, it's incumbent upon them to actually do the work to prepare for it and do that around it. We don't carve out time for them to do that. They have to do it during their own time. We don't pay people to study. They have to do that on their own time. And so, it is, we're giving them the opportunity to do that, and it's up to the individuals, what they do with that opportunity. We just want to make sure that it's fair, that we give fair exams, and that people know what to expect on the exam around this subject matter.
So we've been talking a lot about trimming, or at least being a little bit more fiscally responsible this go around, considering, so let's just talk a little bit about what that would look like for you all, right? If you had to trim the fat and cut your budget down a little bit, where are the areas that you can sacrifice?
I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't even want to speculate until...
Well, let's just speculate for the sake of this exercise.
I mean, if you change the factors, I can change the answer. So speculating is just guessing. And I could look at it from a negative point of view or from a positive point of view, which I choose not to do because it's pretty late in the hour, and all these men and women that are here today actually are currently working and actually do work for the city. So
As we all do too.
I'd be respectful of their time, so I don't want to speculate. I will answer a direct question if you have one.
But I do. So I want to go back to the fact that we are here to try to figure out, the budget is big, right? And so if there was some areas of which we can trim the fat, where would you feel comfortable, Commissioner? That is a very specific question. I mean, would it come out of equipment? Would it come out of contractual services? Where would it go?
I'd probably look to places where we spend a lot of time and energy and effort, which don't go towards public safety and don't go towards, helping us keep the public safe. And we have a ton of requirements. There's a ton of requirements on us to do a lot of different things that don't go towards public safety. And so I'd probably go through that whole long checklist of things that are out there.
So give me one. I mean, who worked on this budget?
I think many people that are at this table.
Right, so then, I'd like to hear from this table setting that we have here.
So the good thing about it is that I deal in realistic stuff. So when something is real, then I will take the real effort to actually go through that process. In between that, it's not really good use of my time or anyone else's here time right now. I deal in the reality of the world because the fact is we deal with things from moment to moment, minute to minute, and there's no need for me to speculate about that right now.
Well, because, folks I don't live in a fear-based mentality, like the world is coming to an end. I have hope and faith and believe that all things are possible. I'm very optimistic. And I feel like sometimes the narrative says, if we don't fund, then, everything's going to just be torn apart. And I challenge that. I don't believe that that's the case. And I feel like we're living in a fear-based society. And I think that when we do that, we're leading with people's deficits, not our assets. And so I think that there is something for us to learn in the exercise that we're trying to have right now, is that we need to give people more credit. And I don't think that we are as, I don't know, maybe just me being optimistic. I feel like the world is not as bad as people have led us to believe.
I'd say this, that very rarely do things ever get better without a conscious effort or an investment into that to get better. And so, we are better because we are investing in our relationships. We invest in community policing. We invest in our officers. We invest in training. We invest in a whole lot of things, and that's what made us a better department around that. So anytime you talk about not doing those, it's hard for me to use that and then still be as hopeful as you described. But I'm also a hopeful person as well. So.
I know my time is up.
We
have a third round, right?
Yes, for councilors, yes. Quick question. I heard Council Mejia ask this question. Do we have a breakdown of what rank, like, is it where our overtime's coming from? Because I believe what Councilor Mejia was getting at was if we have so many vacancies in leadership, right, because they're at a higher pay rate, then if they're required to do overtime, we'll be paying more in overtime, right, opposed to
Supervisors doing overtime or
right,
doing overtime as
supervisors,
a patrolman.
Right, that breakdown. And if we could just see if we could have that breakdown.
I understand the question.
So I think what Councilman Mejia was getting at was because we have so many vacancies on that supervisor level, that we'll be paying more overtime because we're not.
Supervisors?
Right, for supervisors.
So there's far less supervisors than there are police officers, so backfilling for officers is a lot more prevalent in the events. You need a lot more officers before usually supervisors are needed or at least, in some way, shape, or form. So the formula is not a one-for-one around that, and so it's a little different.
But would that be adding to the reason why we're paying more in overtime because supervisors are making more than a patrolman?
There's less positions to fill by far for supervisors than patrolmen. So if we pull in those patrolmen and it's vacancies, those are positions that we may or may not have to backfill immediately, as opposed to supervisors, which some of those we might not have to backfill immediately at all, or if at all, in some ways.
Council Weber?
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple quick comments and a question. First, I guess Commissioner Cox, on the exam, I'd be careful about framing it as people. You want people in supervisory positions who can prepare for the exam. Like in our lieutenant's exam case, we had Bruce Smith, who did very well on the lieutenant's exam, but wasn't being promoted, and we were able to compare some officers who could take leave to study for the exam, whereas Officer Smith worked and earned commendations for his service, and wasn't able to study for the exam as much, but showed exemplary service for BPD. So, I think we should be looking at those people to promote rather than people who can just study for the exam. I'll leave that. And to get to, in my conversations, I represent Eggleston Square, Mildred Haley apartments, and what I've heard from people in those communities, and so much they want to see less policing, but they want to see different kind of policing. They want police officers to be able to get out of their cars, and they want walking beats, and they want a different relationship with the police department. So I hope you'd keep that in mind. In terms of the budget and overtime, we're talking a lot about overtime. Is there anything and I've heard stories, for example, where we'll pay extra for court appearances, and sometimes officers will double, triple up, and then all show up in court. Is there your commissioner, your management, you're managing the police department. I know you don't want to see, wasted effort and money being spent that, we could save and use on other resources, including in the police department. Is there anything you're looking at to reduce the number of hours worked, number of overtime in the police department?
Yeah, we're looking at, everything that we can to make sure that we reduce the number of hours across the board from, officers, like I said, whether they're out injured, so we don't have to replace those and get them back to work, to, making sure that, we don't create unnecessary overtime in some way, shape, or form that is absolutely needed. And so we're looking at so many different things related to, particularly around overtime, and the use of our officers, because it's really important, both budgetary-wise and wellness to our department.
Well, just to follow up on Councilor Mejia's question, I mean, is there anything specifically in that, any practices that you're looking at and saying, okay, this is, this isn't fulfilling our mission, and, we could actually save money? Because if you just look at the overtime budget, it's going in one direction very quickly. Is there, I guess generally, is there anything you want to do to slow that down or reverse it? And then two, are there any specific practices that you've looked at and think, okay, we could do a better job at this?
I mean, we're always looking to do a better job across the board, but the fact is, I mean, right now, everything we go to, either we're required to or we're asked to go to it. And so it's hard for me to say that, we shouldn't go to X when we're the only people going to it. And I don't want to ever give the public a sense that there's stuff that, we don't want to go to. I would say that if we lived in a perfect world and there was a way to deal with mental health issues in a far better way than what we do or what society is doing in general, that would be one of them. But the fact is that we deal with the public, as they are, and so we always have to be at least mentally health informed around that, because we tend to come in contact with them on a daily basis, no matter what.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Chair, I'm yielding back to you.
Thank you. You have a second round of questions, Councilor Fernandez-Anderson? Or third round? All right, Councilor Fernandez-Anderson, the floor is yours.
Thank you. In professional development, the contractor services received a minor increase. It's not a lot, maybe $100,000. But in personnel, there was a significant increase from $6,499,664 to recommended FY25 $11,541,000. Just explaining who are we hiring within the next year to, what is that, about $5 million increase?
So this is what I was speaking of earlier on professional development. When cadets, when recruits go into the academy, they're assigned to the Bureau of Professional Development or to the academy. And when they graduate, and I have to look into this and work with OBM to correct, when they graduate, we're not exactly changing the chart field and where they're sitting. So some of this could be long in Bureau of Field Services. A good chunk of this could be in field services. It's just that they're still charted to the academy where they began versus actually doing what they call a budget amendment form to move them into the proper district or unit or bureau that they now sit in. It's a housekeeping thing that OBM and I are very much aware of, but we found that this has been a problem and a question consistently asked over the years.
I understand. So whereas there's no line item specific to cadet program, you just put it in professional development because essentially it's increasing.
So for example, I'm under code 211301. Those in professional development are on 211401. When they move to BFS upon graduation, they should be moved to 211501. A lot of times that housekeeping doesn't happen because there's so many that they are still sitting in the professional development budget, but they are elsewhere in a district or a bureau.
Okay, thank you so much. I noticed in investigative services, contractual is moot, but in personnel, a decrease. Can you tell me why that is?
I'd have to drill down on it, Counselor, and get that back to you.
Please. No worries about that. I asked that. So Of your, and if you don't have this, if you could just submit it, because we're really interested in the whole like equity thing. I think my district calls me like the equity queen, so I have to like really hone into like contracts and like where WMBs, but also like are we contracting local? And I did ask the question earlier about divesting from like the deadly exchange, and we squared that out. It's not happening. And then, but then also like if I could get it categorized by like what are we contracting local, just so that we as counselors look at policy solutions in terms of like how we can look at companies internal. And I saw a lot of like software, engineering and or maintenance, software maintenance outside of Boston. Now, we're like the capital of everything tech right now, or at least we're becoming that. And I'm just wondering if we can be more intentional in keeping those contracts local. But overall, like, I didn't get the percentage of WMBs, but if I can get that on record through the chair, and then as well as like Boston's percentage and what we are contracting outside of Boston.
I would like to point out that we follow the city's equity procurement guidelines.
Mm-hmm.
We follow the cert list as provided by the city. So anytime that there's a particular service that we need, we go down that cert list to see if there's a viable vendor on that list. We also, if we're going out for an invitation to bid, we use that cert list where we reach out to those vendors, even though they might not even put a bid on the invitation.
Mm-hmm.
So we follow all the guidelines set forth by the equity procurement process within the city. With respect to some of these software contracts, most of them are maintenance service agreements. Once we've had the license that we pay annually, and unfortunately, that's almost considered a sole source because it's their software on the maintenance service. But we do follow the guidelines set forth by the city's equity procurement.
That makes a lot of sense. Very helpful to state on record. That means we have to do a better job here in the city, and we're working on, supplier diversity, how we can maintain our list of contracts, or applicants. And if we're the ones providing it to you, then we need to do a better job at diversifying that. It's not looking good in terms of like us contracting local or outside of Boston. We want to contract Boston, and then if anything, we want to contract in Massachusetts, and if anything, like, closer to home. And you're an expert on this, why. So, but I would be interested in just looking at the percentage, though, just so that I can take that conversation to supplier diversity and say, look, we need to do a better job here and figure out how I can be of help.
Well, I think education is key to, kind of like the store Sims, the best consumer is the educated consumer. A lot of vendors out there don't know the contractual process for the city. And
Yeah.
we've had contract fairs before, and they were extremely helpful. Like, we had a table set up a couple of times in the bowling building, and just for question and answers, and people weren't aware there's a vendor portal, there's a supplier portal that you go in and register as a vendor, and also how they fill out their vendor profile helps us distinguish, are they a small business, are they minority-owned business? If they don't check that off the box, we can't capture that information.
Yeah. No, like, for example, you spent a lot of effort, you made a lot of effort in advertising your exams, and then there was an increase, and I saw, like, in the last couple of years, there was a decrease, but then this year, you did like the bus banners, social media, a bunch. I read it through your FI report. So good job on that, and hopefully we can continue to try to increase diversity within your department by way of like people knowing to take these exams. I saw that last year a detective was assigned to investigate the murder of Rita Hester, and I know that you cannot comment on ongoing investigations, but I'm curious to learn more about the process of how BPD goes about investigating particularly cold cases involving trans individuals, and what guidelines, special considerations are given when dealing with hate crimes involving trans people. Do you keep track record of gender identity expression or sexual orientation for those victims of homicide shootings in Boston?
Ma'am, again, if you could just give me the question again.
Yeah, no problem. Examples, I'll start with examples. Do you keep track of gender identity expression and sexual orientation for victims' homicide shootings in Boston? Basically, just sort of like, how you deal with investigation cold cases involving trans individuals and what guidelines those special investigations that you're executing.
I guess, is it noted somewhere in the file? I would say that through conversations with the family and what the investigators would learn, it's going to be noted. Does that change the way any of our investigators approach an investigation? Absolutely not. The investigation would be done if it were an unhoused person, if it were a millionaire. We're going to continue to do, the investigation is going to be conducted in the same manner. It's the cooperation that we're getting that we try to elicit from the public. That's where we run into problems. So we don't, there might be a certain area in the city where people would be more forthcoming in giving us information, and there's other areas because of fear of reprisal that they would not. So the best I can tell you is that these investigators, they're very good at what they do. They're very invested, and they become a part of the surviving family themselves. And so anything outside of what a person may represent, a person may be, that doesn't factor into the way they conduct their investigation.
I appreciate your response to be inclusive in terms of non-discriminatory or biases as it relates to how you conduct your work. It's a topic that's near and dear to my heart, and just wanted to get an idea of how it works or how you go about specifically, like, does if you're tracking that, like, is there a trend in figuring out like what the issue is or the state of affairs in Boston as it concerns trans?
Sure, and we would, through the BRIC as well, we would definitely, we're looking for patterns. We're always looking for patterns, and we're going to look outside of Boston as well to see what may be happening nationally, to see if that's coming our way, or is it factoring in? Could it be somebody trans, that's moving around and committing crimes? But yes, we would always look for patterns.
Thank you. I think that, this process is, I think it's actually exciting. Numbers have become an exciting thing. And so I know. But, I will be just sort of to recap where my part or my work goes from here. We have the increases, decreases, but it's the answers that we get from you that we sort of try to balance what's going on with the numbers. And if there are areas that we need clarification on in terms of like, if we feel it's in excess, if we feel that it's unreasonable. And it sounds like in terms of like effective like first pay period from 2020 to all the way to your contract 2024, and then in terms of the percentages increases that you have to like go and balance out, and then considering professional development, considering cadet and all of these things. And today it sounds like the numbers worked out for me, but I will have questions specific on different line items just so that we can like work out the kinks. And if there are, hopefully we do find extra money, or maybe, there are areas that OBM need to clarify. And that's what I wanted to leave you with. My final word, just to remind folks on what I'm looking for in terms of information, data, demographics that we asked about in terms of promotions, the sergeant specifically. I'm going to reiterate one more time, and it's just an opinion, a humble one, I hope, that 2021, you have those test scores, you've promoted about 70 sergeants, and if you can go up to 150 if we can use those test scores already in place. And I understand you have newcomers or people that have been in about 3 years and could benefit as well from taking exams, but having that people have already put in their time and investment into a career and they've taken these tests, I'm encouraging, on record that we take a look at those people that have passed to try to promote more sergeants of color. Specifically, I know you don't have any Haitian women in leadership and supporting that as well on record. And also, if there are plans to expand mental health crisis response, I think that's the direction. I used to be a mental health provider, and I would love to be able to look at the numbers and figure out if there's opportunities for us to continue to evolve on that area, and especially with collaborations with the BEST team. I know that they're severely overwhelmed and could use more funding, more staff, more capacity, and then as well as in terms of professional development, ongoing supports and trainings, opportunities for officers to enhance their skills. You mentioned, folks can study, folks can take their tests, but then if that's what we're doing, can we look at policies in the past that we've already used to increase diversity, especially in promotions, and then fair salaries? I think, I do have questions in terms of like the quality of life for officers and performance. People are deemed insane if they don't get sleep after 72 hours, right? So how are we looking at, how long are people working, and is it viable for us to continue this pattern of forcing people to work as opposed to looking at how we can balance it out? And so all the questions I asked about the numbers and the decreases and increases, I will submit through the chair, and hopefully you can send them to me. I did have questions specifically, one last one.
No, they've been here for 3 rounds.
No, it's one last question.
No,
like on record,
Submit
and I
it.
could stop. He doesn't have to answer.
Submit it to the chair.
I'm submitting it to you.
All right.
So the question
Councilor
is,
Fernandez Anderson.
No, I'm submitting it
Thank
to you.
No, you can submit it to me in writing.
This is really important.
No, we have important questions from our council colleagues as well.
Oh,
Thank
I thought
you
I
for
was
your
the only
time.
one. I'm sorry.
Councilor Murphy, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Oh, and I just want to acknowledge that Councilor Durkin has joined us. Councilor Murphy, the floor is yours.
Close us out. Just one statement. I know when Councilor Mejia asked kind of for specifics, like where would you cut, which is never an answer we ever want to kind of talk about, but the first things that came to mind were just like all the times I see our community offices, if it's at the Charlestown baseball parade, if it's at a senior walk, if it's at our, coffee with a cop, it's all of those, the bike units, the resources that I know when some of my colleagues spoke about when we're in community at meetings and neighbors are asking for, different types of police services. If we were to start cutting, those would be the services that would have to go first, because you keep mentioning, and it's true that the safety always has to be priority. Everything else, which we know is important, but it wouldn't be falling on the police department to provide those services anymore. And it would probably not be provided by any other department, because we have all the other departments come through us also and talk about their needs and how their budgets are tight also. So just wanted to uplift that all of those things that may seem extra, if we're starting to cut, we know is so crucial to the city being vibrant. So just wanted to uplift that, and just thank you for still being here. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I do want to acknowledge that we have acknowledged that there are line items within the department that have been historically underspent, right? Like lease purchases in history, right? Historically, permanent employees have been underspent. So I just want to acknowledge that we have acknowledged that in this hearing. Councilor Flynn, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioner, and to the team. Commissioner, I listened to Superintendent Nora Baston talk about professional development and especially the training recruits are getting at the academy, supporting those with mental health challenges. My question is, do we offer any type of assistance if there's an officer call to a veteran in trouble facing mental health challenges and the police officer responds. But do we have any professional development or training for police officers as it relates to supporting veterans that are in crisis?
Yeah, and so I can't speak to all the training, particularly around that, but I do know we have partnerships with the military who have actually come, and I've spoken with the general himself about resources for veterans just for that purpose, to give them direct connections to VAs around the help and support that they need. So we do have information that, that we pass on to the officers to make sure that vets that need extra help can actually get it and where they can go about getting it from.
Okay, no, that's good to hear. Commissioner, if a police officer needs to attend a medical appointment at the Veterans Administration, what is the process for that police officer to request time off? I want to ensure that police officer has the opportunity to engage in his or her medical care for the VA.
Yeah, and so, any officer can take a personal day, and that doesn't require us to get permission. And then they can certainly use one of those days to schedule appointments. They can also ask for, a vacation day or any other type of day, the discretionary day that we might have through their local captain, telling them what it was for. And if it's health related, I'm pretty sure that those leaves might be granted. So. But personal days they don't need our permission for those.
Okay. What would happen, Commissioner, if a police officer is instructed or has to work mandatory overtime and he or she has a medical appointment at the VA? What would the procedure be? What would the logistics be for that particular officer?
I'm sure if the officer shares that information with the supervisor beforehand, that maybe outside of when I say a serious emergency within the city, I'm sure that they would probably grant the officer time to do that via some of the many ways in which we have time to be granted.
Thank you. I do want to make sure, and I know you are committed to it as well, Commissioner, but supporting our veterans that are on the police department that are our first responders, especially the younger people that are going to be on the police department for the next 15, 20 years. We want to make sure that their medical and mental health support is there. The VA does a tremendous job, but so does the Boston Police Department mental health response as well. Officer wellness is something that I'm concerned with, that I want to ensure that we have the necessary funding, the resources in the budget to support that. And if we don't have healthy officers and their families, we don't have a strong police department. And asking police officers to work 16 hours a day is very unhealthy in my opinion, but that's why I continue to advocate for more police officers. We don't have enough, and they are under pressure to do so much more in society. And we have to support our officers as we ask them to do more for the city, asking them to do more for the residents of Boston. But when a situation happens and they're on their 15th hour of supporting the residents of Boston, I guess I'm not asking a question, but we have to at least factor that type of situation when there is a problem, there is a challenge, that we put an officer in this situation where he or she is on their 15th hour, and we expect them to be 100% on top of their game. It just doesn't work. I've been there, I've seen that, and had the opportunity to serve 24 years in the Navy, and I've worked 24-hour shifts, and I couldn't do it. I'm barely able to stand up after working 15 or 16 hours, but to have that consistently happen to police officers I think it's upon us as city councilors to acknowledge that we're not supporting our residents when we put a police officer on patrol for 16 straight hours. Again, thank you, Commissioner. Thank you to your team. And thank you, Mr. Chair, for this informative hearing.
Thank you. Councilman Mejia, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Shane. So a few things. I just want to clarify, just for the record so that everybody understands, and I am not misquoted in the Boston Herald in particular, is that when I'm talking about reallocating resources, and I'm asking us to think creatively about how we can both consider public safety and also repair harm, build trust, I believe, right, that those community officers, those things that really matter, are not the things that should be the first to be cut in the budget. So I'm challenging us to, because those are the things that build relationships. Those community resource officers that are on the ground, that are showing up, that are walking the beat, that are developing relationships with community, those are the folks who know how to interact. So I think that should be the last thing that gets cut first. So I just want to note that for the record. Because the things that build trust are the things that we need to invest more in. But I'm just curious, how much does it cost to take the exam?
$150. The entry level or the promotional?
Both.
So the civil service for the entry level, I want to say it's $75 for the civil service exam. And they also have you can actually request to waive the fee at civil service. They have a period of when you can waive the fee if you have some undue hardship. For the promotional exam, there's going to be a fee charged for the of $150 for the education and experience component of the exam. That'll be done by the vendor.
And who pays for that? Do you guys pay for that, or do the council? Who pays for it?
For the $150, the officer pays that $150.
Oh, so we don't have a budget for it.
We have a budget for the promotional exam. In fiscal year 25, there's $1.8 million in the recommended fiscal year 25 budget.
So that we're going to waive the promotion. So
no, this is for example, that 1.8 is to pay for the exam administrator, to secure venues for the assessment center, for the actual oral boards. And so it's also to provide study materials from an outside vendor.
Right. So, because the reason why I'm asking is that, there's an expectation for people to work, even when it's forced to do overtime, and studying for an exam after a summer factored into all the mandatory 18 hours, let's just say, that an officer can work. So studying for an exam like this is important to their career. And so we're putting officers at a disadvantage from doing well. So I'm just curious, how are we reconciling the $150 fee?
$150 fee is the cost of
to take the exam, right? So if you are overtime at 18 hours a day, let's just say for example, and you just laid out a very, busy summer, and the reason why we need so much overtime in our budget, and I'm going back to the exam, and you're a person of color, and you have to study for the exam, but you're also forced to do overtime, how are we setting up our officers of color for success in passing this exam if they're being forced to do overtime?
So, the overtime would be equitable, I would think, or for, everyone in a district station that might be impacted by that, or wherever they're assigned. The cost of the exam is the cost of the exam, so everyone has to
and if they
that.
fail?
They're all equally, impacted by the cost of that.
All right, so are you familiar with the program We Belong? That is Jeff, okay. And Grow, the girls program. And so there are a lot of programs that are being led by officers of color, and oftentimes on their own time and dime, right? And so when I look at a budget that is this big, and then I think about all of the young people who need more services, I'm just curious in terms of investments, why are we falling short on investing in programming that support the emotional and physical and mental well-being of young people.
We try to seek out non-taxpayer dollars to support those programs through foundations and grants and things of that nature. That's how we try to support most of those programs.
No, I understand the how you try to, but I'm just curious if we're talking about a moment in time for us to invest in people, where in the budget can you see that happening within the current budget that you have?
I mean, I think it's investing in people when we give them an opportunity to, move or try to apply for other jobs. I think it's an investment in people when we have trainings and all the different trainings that we do around that and give them the opportunity to do that. I think we give them an opportunity to invest in themselves by just giving opportunities across the board. And I think that's important. I think when people work hard towards something, it's an investment in themselves, and whether they get promoted or not, they learn something, they grow from it, regardless. When we do these exams, no more than 10% of the people who take the exam will ever be promoted. That means every exam, almost 90% of the people will not be promoted. But the fact is, if the department as a whole, the people are taking these exams and studying it, even if they don't get promoted, their knowledge base has gone up, and the impact to the city is good. So taking exams is a good thing for everyone. We don't make a promise that every single person that takes an exam is going to be promoted. That's not the promise that we put out there. Just the opportunity to do that. And so it's incumbent upon the individuals to do some work too. Now, there's some things that we can do to help, and we will try to do that. But the fact is that we're only talking about a small percentage of the people who take these exams who will ever be promoted in any exam.
And what other pathways are you exploring now to diversify?
We take the exam, see what happens on the end of it, and then look at who passes the test, and then we can address it a lot better when we have real numbers with real people associated with it.
Yeah, I think there's some work that we need to do around more transparency. I think that there needs to be some sort of level setting in terms of criteria, because sometimes it's all in who you know, who you're in good graces with, who's your village, and that seems to be the sentiment for a lot of folks. So I want to name that as things that I hear out in these streets. Superintendent Colón, ¿tú hablas español?
Sí.
¿Dónde tú eres?
Puerto Rico.
Puertorriqueño. ¿Cuánto tiempo tú tienes en el force?
Más de 30 años.
Más de 30 años. Y dime tú a mí, en esos 30 años, ¿verdad? ¿Cuáles son las cosas que tú piensas que de verdad podemos hacer diferente para asegurarnos que nuestra gente, particularmente los hispanos, se sientan como que sean más reflejados en el trabajo? Que haya más gente como tú en posiciones como que tú las tienes ahora.
¿En español o en inglés?
En español, mi amor.
Yo te voy a decir que
I want to test your Spanish.
tenemos que cambiar la cultura. Nosotros tenemos que cambiar la cultura. Tenemos que fajarnos, tenemos que trabajar fuerte. Yo te digo a ti que yo he tenido muchos mentors y sponsors. Y el hablar, eso no me importa a mí.
Exacto.
Es como uno camina.
Exacto.
La acción de la persona. Y con eso, yo veo a la gente, hay gente antes de mí, me ha enseñado a mí, que yo solo enseño a la gente detrás. Hay gente que están trabajando conmigo. So, lo que te digo es, yo voy a seguir, yo sé que toda esta gente que están aquí van a seguir lifting people en este trabajo. Pero yo le suplico a la gente que tenemos que cambiar la cultura, tenemos que trabajar fuerte. No hay ninguna excusa. Tenemos que trabajar fuerte.
That's right. That's right. So it's about shifting the culture and the narrative oftentimes, right? So we did not talk about one thing here, and I know it was, I believe I saw it as one of the examples. It's the Faith in Blue. And so there's an officer, Officer De La Rosa, who is incredibly just deeply rooted in community, and I have seen him in so many spaces and places. And, you know, this is why for me, my evolution in the revolution is because I've had the opportunity to be in community with some officers who are the real deal, who are out here doing the work because they love the people that they serve. And I think that that's what I want more of, is people who understand the culture and who understand what young people are carrying, so that when you are interacting with young people, you're coming from a different place. And I think that is one of the reasons why there's so much tension here still, Commissioner, in terms of the budget. Because I don't think that a lot of people see themselves reflected in the decisions that are being made. And yes, you are a Black man, and yes, you know, you're working really hard at changing things, but that does not wash away the hurt and the perception. And I'm sorry that you all have to carry that, but this is why I harped on diversity and really having the political will to really change the guard, if you will. Because only then can people who are fighting for real justice could see themselves reflected. And I think that we have a long way to go here in the city of Boston. And it's difficult to sit through budget hearings, right? And you hear from, you know, some folks, and there's just a lot of division. And I just don't think that that's what we need now, right? We have to figure out how everyone feels like they've won and everyone feels like they've lost. We shouldn't have a system in which people feel like we're pitting each other apart. And I think that that's what we do here on the city council. You know, I don't ever want anyone to think that I don't appreciate your work. I value it and I respect it. It's easier to go with that narrative because then you can pit people against each other. But I'm not going to allow that to happen, not this year. We're gonna have to have hard conversations about how we build and restore trust, because young people are looking at us and they're expecting us to deliver. And then communities who don't feel safe are expecting us to deliver. And I am watching all of this, and I'm trying to think about, where do we meet in the middle? How do we get to a place where no one feels left behind? And we have to get away from that narrative that pits us against each other. That does not work. No one wins if we can't get this right. And that's what I'm invested in. And I'm saying that publicly, right? I'm invested in making sure that we get this right. And that means that a lot of people are not going to be happy, right? But it's okay. I'm not here to make people happy. I'm here to do my job. And my job is to bring these issues to the table and figure out, how do we meet in the middle? And no one ever wants to meet in the middle because people want to dig their heels for the people who they want to fight for. And I feel like we need to stop that. And we need to say, you know what, those who want more police and those who don't want police need to duke it out in a good way. We need to come here and figure out how we're going to get to where we need to be so that everyone feels like they've won. No one should walk out of here feeling like they've lost. And that's the system that we have set up. Winners and losers. And I don't want to play that game because nobody wins. At least in my personal humble opinion. I need you to be successful, Commissioner. Because if you're successful, then my people can live longer. Right? If investing in the things that you want, right, keeps crime down in my community, I want to support that. And I also think it's important to acknowledge that we have mental health issues, we have housing issues, we have a whole bunch of other things that need to be addressed. And we can't do it like playing the Hunger Games here, which is what we do during these budget seasons. Like, we pit departments against departments. You all are important. And we have to figure out how we grapple with that in a way that's not divisive. And that's what I'm looking to you, Chair, to do, is to find a way for everyone to feel like they've won. Because that has never been the case. In the last 4 years that I've sat through all of these hearings, people are always feeling like they've lost. And we can't keep showing up and expecting different results when we're not willing to do the hard work. And I think that that's what we're asking you all to do, is to think about where can we, in the budget, which is pretty big, where can we reallocate some resources to support housing and mental health and youth jobs? I mean, right? Everybody has to live, everybody has to eat, and everybody's so afraid. And I feel like looking at that graph that you shared, we are, out of all of the cities across the country, we're doing better than anyone else. And now is the time for us to experiment and to take risks and to invest in communities in ways like we have never seen, because we have the data to show that you guys are doing an amazing job. And we appreciate that. And now let's think about how we can share that piece of the pie in ways that keep us safe, but also speak to the issues that communities are literally dying for. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Council Mejia. Going back to detail reform, getting everything stood up, can you tell me like where we're at in the timeline and what are the costs associated with implementing the detail program?
Thank you, Chair. So now that hopefully we have the final sworn contract approved, we can move forward with rounding out implementation of the various components of the reform. At the same time, we're in the process of vendor presentations for the automated system. There are several companies who perform that service around Massachusetts, and so we're engaged with them to see the kind of pros and cons of each of those programs so that we can develop an RFP to lock in that service for the BPD. At the same time, our team is working with the procurement team here at City Hall to develop the RFP for that third-party vendor that we talked about that's going to focus on the training and staffing of non-police personnel at details throughout the city. The automated system is generally something that pays for itself through an administrative fee. There may be some cost attached to that, but we're in the process of figuring that out. And for the vendor, there are a fair bit of unknowns in that process to date that may have an impact on the cost, but there is funding in the FY25 proposed budget to put towards that specific contract as we continue to finalize the reforms in the agreements.
And what's that cost?
So I think we have $500,000 proposed in the budget for that. We anticipate the automation RFP going out early in the summer, and then the second for the third-party vendor, presumably in the fall.
All right, and then there was a service that you said paid for itself. There's no upfront cost to get that?
So there may be a slight administrative cost, but what we're seeing, and I think what I know anecdotally, is a lot of the vendors utilize the administrative fee or some type of service cost that gets charged to the vendors to pay for the service.
All right. And just two more questions. Going back to vacancies for civilian positions, are we working with the People's Operations Department to see if we can expand or increase the wages, on how we can, right size the department if need be to kind of make sure that we're getting all the responsibilities, done with kind of right sizing that department?
We work a lot with City Hall, the folks in OHR, class and comms, to make sure that the vacant positions that we have, we make some changes to the job description. They are reviewed by class and comm to make sure that they're graded appropriately. And there have been quite a few positions that have been reclassified as a result of their job changing or expanding or growing more based on 20 years ago, that they have been recommended for reclassification from class and comp, but we do work hand in hand with them.
We do that every 6 months, every year? Is that annual?
No, it's usually a position by position basis.
Okay.
But there've been several positions as a result of how they've changed and how they have grown, have been reclassified, but only at the recommendation of OBM and class and comp.
I would add that the large majority of our civilian positions are also union positions, so there is some alignment with the collective
Correct.
bargaining agreements
Right.
when we're talking about a wholesale change to salaries.
All right. And then what goes into determining the staffing needed or when, public safety is needed at a special event? And how is that determined? How many officers need to be at a special event? And then can you give me, the range of costs, that overtime cost that goes into, our special events?
So without getting in too much into this secret formula, the fact of the matter is there's a bunch of factors. What's going on? Do we believe that there's, agitators coming in? Do we believe that there's a high likelihood of violence and things of that nature? The more the public safety need, the more we make sure we have appropriate people to handle it. And that's based on what's going on, what's the intelligence around what's happening and things of that nature. So we're informed around data, around a lot of that. Some of the other special events might be a little different, but it also goes to history of events, history of other, is there violence in history historically associated with some of these things? What's the number of people we have, in the past? Has there been any incidents? And then there's other specialized events that we can, look to, again, using our intelligence related to what's happening in the city, what's happening in the world, what's happening around that event. And then the day-to-day, crime associated with things in general around that.
Thank you.
But you asked about money. What was the other half?
If you have a dollar amount.
For
the largest, like how much money for, you could pick any special event, I guess the highest.
Pick the marathon.
The marathon is a big ticket for us, usually upwards towards $1 million for the marathon. 85% of the costs are in so far for this year's marathon, and right now we're at $860,453.
That's in overtime, or?
Yeah, overtime, but I'd also like to point out that, although it's not considered a special event, overtime, we do capture mass and cast, and that has grown significantly year on year.
Thank you. Just want to acknowledge people from the department that were here earlier or still here right now. Deputy Harris, Deputy McLaughlin, Superintendent Baston, Superintendent Dodden, Deputy Eden, Superintendent, I'm going to mess up this last name, Kosmeski, Superintendent Chin, Superintendent Cruz, Deputy Cahill, Deputy Gillespie, Deputy Curry, Superintendent Chiloko, Deputy Dayhill, Superintendent Owens, Marlene Burns, Ryan Walsh, Marie Chevers, and Dave Fredette. I want to thank you guys all for all your service to the city of Boston. I would run down the name of all the police officers and sergeants and captains and lieutenants in District 4, but I know I'm going to miss someone, but I just want to let them know that I do appreciate all their service. I believe we have one more person for public testimony, and what's the name? Luann O'Connor, and I just want to say thank you guys for being here. Second biggest department in BPS. I believe we had them five hearings. So I just want to say thank you guys for your patience and for being here. Luann, the floor is yours.
Good evening, everyone. It has been a long day for these hearings, but I'm on here because what I've heard throughout the day is really anti-police agenda, and that's not okay. I'm a constituent of Councillor Flynn, who is my district councillor. I am a constituent of Councillor Murphy and Councillor Santana. What I'm hearing is, and what the commissioner is saying, he's answering a lot of your questions, but you just don't want to hear. And I'm not understanding that. It's so logical. The city is growing. The police force is not. The events are growing. The police force is not. So what is it going to take for people to understand, particularly our young people who are reading the form that they've been given? What is it going to take for people to actually understand if we don't have police on our streets, crime will increase? I'm going to bring you back to former DA Rollins when she put together her list of what she will no longer prosecute. Now you're seeing smash and grabs. You're seeing open air drug market. You're seeing rapes. You're seeing big crime. And that's not even addressing shoplifting and B&Es. Our safety is at risk here. And that's throughout the entire city of Boston, of all areas, because all does mean all, right? Evidently not always. And what I'm hearing is it's just unacceptable. Look at New York. New York went down the same path and had to pause and step back because their crime was so out of control. I'm also hearing that people are trying to break the blue, and that includes city councilors. And that's not okay. The blue cannot and will not be broken. And nobody's considering that these men and women of the Boston Police Department, they're human beings. They have families. They are just like us, but they're willing to put their life on the line every day, every night when they go to work. They suit up in their uniform. And I'm sorry, young people and progressive people, that means guns. And in my opinion, they have to be armed either equal to or more so than the criminals. And this is so logical. I'm not really wrapping my head around why the police are getting such a bad reputation. This is the year 2024. Commissioner Cox, in my opinion, is a fabulous leader. He's being honest. He is just embracing the entire city of Boston. And that's all of the city of Boston. So this has to stop. We're going to have a lawless city because laws were made to govern society, right? And that means all of society. And insofar as the promotion goes, not everybody gets a trophy. You learn that in sports. Not everybody gets a trophy. And those that rise to the top through hard work, then they succeed. And then you have those who are happy, just, run of the mill, and that's okay too. So let's not get so wrapped up in, the police budget and what they can do and what they shouldn't do. If there's money in the budget itself for housing, because that is an important issue, DPS, we might want to look there to give some money around. But this has to stop. The agenda is to bash the police. And it's clear, it's been the agenda for the past 3 years that I've been here listening to these meetings. And it's not okay. It needs to stop. They need to be respected. They're people just like you and I. And the
Thank you, Louis.
Okay, you get my point.
Yep, thank you. Want to thank Central staff, our Boston police officer. Want to thank our panelists. Want to thank my team and all my council colleagues. I'll give a shout out to IGR as well. This hearing on dockets number 0670 through 0678 is adjourned.